The following program is brought to you by Fanbags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbag Cornhole.
This is Ethan Morton from Purdue Men's Basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Boilers in the Stands. I am your host, Kraig Bowers Jr., and alongside me, as always, is my guys, Kraig Bowers and Joe Jackson. Aidan won't be joining us tonight, but we're excited to hear from him tomorrow when we get to Selection Sunday and, of course, Championship Sunday for the Purdue Boilermakers, who will now take on the Penn State Nittany Lions after giving Ohio State their third straight loss versus the Boilers here this season in pretty easy fashion for the most part. I mean, Ohio State made them earn it in certain spots, but Purdue certainly felt in control for the entire second half and a good portion at the end of the first half. So, you know, it's exciting to see Purdue kind of move on and kind of take care of, don't play with their food. They took care of business. They beat a team they are better than. And by the end of the game, it wasn't exactly in question. You just never know, so you don't want to jinx it. But, it felt pretty good pretty much throughout the entire second half. So, and then, of course, the surprise of the day, because we're going to cover everything. We're going to talk about the game today where Purdue took down Ohio State and how they did. And then, of course, talk about the matchup tomorrow against Penn State, because probably the more surprising news of the day is that Penn State takes down the Indiana Hoosiers, where you really felt like IU and Purdue were in a crash course to play for the championship on Sunday, which would have only been the second time in Big Ten tournament history since that happened, which was the first ever Big Ten tournament championship. So that's not happening. Purdue will take on Penn State. and face an old friend in Micah Shrewsberry. So the chess match will continue between Matt Painter and Micah with a lot of familiarity on how they coach and what they want to do as far as on an offensive and defensive standpoint. So, Kraig, your takeaways from another big day at the United Center.
Yeah, I think it was just a really good win, and we can say what we want about conference tournaments and how much they matter or not, but it's still, every team sets a goal, 3 goals at the beginning of the season, that they win their conference season conference regular season championship, their conference tourney championship, and then an NCAA tournament championship. And we've got a chance to check 2 of those 3 boxes off the list going into tomorrow. And, when you think about this, it's been since 2009 since Purdue has won a championship. So this should really mean something to them. And I thought just a really great game today. Like you said, it got a little bit close at the end, but college basketball is all about matchups, man. And we match up really good against Ohio State. They just don't really have a way to stop Edey. And I just thought we took care of business in pretty reasonable fashion today, all day long.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you that don't know Kraig's new background, he's actually in my man cave here at my house. My daughter Addison thinks he's staying forever because he does puzzles with her. So we don't know. He may or may not stay after tomorrow. We'll see. But, he's shackled up with me here at the Braggs residence. We're going to, order some food later, watch some more basketball, watch UCLA, Arizona, and Duke, see if Duke can help that resume a little more here in a little bit. So if you hear any echo, Kraig's literally in the room right next to me. So if you do, please say so in the chat, and we'll try to make sure we rectify that. But we should be good from an echo standpoint. But you're absolutely right, Kraig, when it comes to, Brian Newbert's been talking about this a lot, kind of exercising the demons of last year. And Brandon Newman addressed that in his they had like a side press conference in the weight room, kind of a spillover for a couple players as opposed to the main podium that you saw Zach Edey and Braden Smith at after the game today. And Brandon Newman did not shy away from the fact that he was like, look, we remember how it felt last year losing to Iowa on that floor in Indianapolis for the championship. We remember what it felt like to lose at Wisconsin when they stormed the court. We remember how we felt when we lost in the NCAA tournament. So now they have an opportunity to exercise. They've exercised one demon by winning the Big Ten championship. Check. Now, if they can win a Big Ten tournament championship, that's a big check. That's 2 of the 3 goals you have going into the season. And then you add the fact that they have a National Player of the Year and all the talk about how they've exceeded expectations. They're well on their way to calling this a successful season even before they reach March, where we all want them to slay the dragon and get to the Final Four and win a national championship. But you got to give these guys a lot of credit, Joe. They're kind of taking it one step at a time. And me and Kraig kind of talked about it. I'm sure Kraig's going to touch on it too, because he's been such a big proponent of why that number 1 seed is important. And it's on full display here in the Big Ten tournament. They've got a 1 seed. The matchups have fallen their way, and now they're playing Penn State here in the championship instead of one of the higher seeds.
Yeah, it's important. I think Kraig tweeted out the stats earlier, the percentage of teams that make the Final Four of 1 seed compared to 2 seed or something of that nature. And it is really beneficial. And, Purdue has done what they've had to do in the Big Ten tourney, and that's just keep winning. If you're wanting a 1 seed, you're hoping for a UCLA loss tonight. UCLA loss and a Purdue win tomorrow probably gets them the 1 seed. I'm no bracketologist, though. That is more up Kraig's alley, and we'll definitely hit on that. But in terms of just the pure game, I just want to talk, just instant reactions to that is 2 things. One, this was a good reminder, I think, at least to me and maybe others, of like, hey, Purdue has this guy named Zach Edey, and like, unless you have an elite big or like an insanely good game plan, he's really tough to stop. And I think, with the struggles a little bit in general from Purdue as of late, maybe I just kind of forgot that of like, hey, there's, he is the best player in the country. He's having one of the greatest college seasons of all time. You can just feed him. And if teams don't have a good answer, like Zach, Edey can win you multiple games in a row. And that's, teams haven't seen him in the, like, in the Big Ten, everybody's seen them now. In March Madness, maybe you'll run into one Big Ten team. Nobody else is going to have seen him. So there's that part. And then also, and I want to touch on this more later. I thought Painter was just awesome today. I thought he made all the right adjustments, pushed all the right buttons. Wasn't the best start defensively, made the right adjustments. Schematically, lineup wise, just kept feeding Edey the ball. And if we talk about IU Penn State, that was something IU did not do with Trace, is they did not give their best player the ball. And Purdue just kept going to him, and it just worked. So I thought it was a great game from Painter. I thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, and they made the adjustments, right, Joe? Because we got to talk about that at some point. Because to start the game, you had, what was his last name?
Roddy Gale Jr.
Gale hit every three in sight, and it was
5 of 5.
because and this is something they're going to be up against tomorrow. They're doubling the post, and then Ohio State swinging it and reversing it to the other side of the court, finding the open man, and it's a fairly easy shot, and they were knocking every single one of them threes down, and that's what's going to happen tomorrow. They're going to double the post on Jalen Pickett. Jalen's going to go to that. He don't care if he's on Zach Edey. He's posting him up because that's his game, and then we're going to double the post, and then it's going to be kick to the other side of the court, and then you got Funk. You got guys that can knock down shots. Their other guy, I'm losing
Lundy?
my train. What?
Seth Lundy?
Seth
Lundy, Winter, they can all hit shots, dude.
Clary's
They
looking
can all
good.
hit shots. But what Purdue's done really, really well against Penn State, and Painter does this often, where he says, we're going to do this, and then we're going to shut this one guy down, no matter what. You guys are staying locked in on him. We are going to shut him down. We're not going to give him a shot. And the thing they've done really well against Penn State is they have not let Funk get going. They have kept him in a funk both games.
That's good. He's their X factor, because in the first half of the IU game, he was held at bay for the most part. I don't know if that was IU's doing or his own doing, but he didn't have many points. And then all of a sudden, the second half, he gets loose a couple times. 1 3 he made at the end of the shot clock, which was a deep 3. But he's got that ability, and if you're going to let him go off, and then you still got to deal with Winter and Lundy and Pickett, you've got problems. And of course, yes, our guy Bitcoin is Freedom is joining us live. He's gracing us with his presence here today, and he's become a celebrity of sorts here on this show because of his amazing basketball acumen and his confidence in Brandon Newman. So we're going to give him his platform to get his opinions out there, and we appreciate his support to this show. And he says, it was the Edey show today, as expected, against depleted Ohio State. Newman and Braden redeemed themselves from yesterday. Newman always great defense though, so I can still live with him 0-4 like yesterday, and I'm inclined to agree with him. I'm all in. I've given up whatever drum I was trying to bang. Brandon Newman gives constant effort on the defensive end. He fights through screens. He makes things difficult. He gets in passing lanes. He gets tough rebounds. And, maybe this was my bad on my part when we had a chance to interview him. Maybe it was something that needed to be asked because, it's abundantly clear that now that he's getting extended minutes, the mistakes are going down. And I think there was just some calculus with some of us that thought, and Kraig has pointed that out here on this show, that was the risk. You were feeling like for all that wanted him to play more, that he made so many mistakes in limited minutes, well, how many is he going to make if he's playing more? Well, he's proven it goes the other way, which is kind of teaching you a little something about, letting guys get in a groove and get some confidence and not have fear of staring at that bench. So, and now he's starting to knock down some shots, getting more confident. He talked about getting comfortable with the new Wilson basketball. Braden, when I asked Braden Smith about the basketball, he said, no excuses. I don't care what basketball we play with. But Brandon was, was pretty honest with his assessment. Not saying Braden wasn't, but Brandon said it is an adjustment for him to, use a new basketball. He said the grip is different. The ball's a little bigger. So, yesterday's 0-4, and now all of a sudden he's sinking some shots. And this is going to be the ball they play within the tournament, right, Kraig?
Yeah, this will be the same ball as the tournament. But to your point about Brandon, I think what I was talking about, or why I pointed at me, was a couple shows ago we said the chicken and the egg argument. Like, is Brandon playing more because he quit making mistakes, or is he not making mistakes because he's playing more? Because when you get in those limited minutes, you feel like you got to get your shots. You feel like you got to do something to prove your worth, all of that. And I think just that confidence is starting, and knowing that he's got those minutes, he's not rushing those shots. He's not forcing anything up. And I mean, he'll still make a mistake here or there, but he's had some good dribble drive action where he's got 2 feet in the paint and then kicked it out or forced a rotation so that Edey can get the ball, shot a little turnaround in the lane, which quite frankly, I don't think we've ever seen out of Brandon over the course of his career. That was something new, but it looked comfortable for him. It was an easy shot for him. And what he's doing defensively is just, I mean, he locked guys up today, just locked people up.
Yeah, I mean, Thornton had his worst game in a while, and that was his primary assignment. And I don't know what we want to transition to or whatever, but that was.
I just real quick to stick with Newman for a minute, because he just
and no, I was
is
thinking
the
there
spark.
too.
He is the spark plug, that has kind of rejuvenated this team here at the end of the season, and we'd be remiss to not touch on it a little more. And Blake Widmer says Newman is great on rebounding and helps us avoid as much rotation, and he's been passing a lot better lately. And that's another really salient point there, Blake, because there was a point in the game where he could have taken a jumper mid-range or a 3, and instead he chooses to pass, and then it ends up being a better shot for somebody else, and it goes down. And Newman is showing this every game now, that he's going to have that willingness to do that. So just across the board, Brandon Newman has been such a shot in the arm. Bitcoin is freedom, is a basketball savant. And I bow to the altar of Bitcoin is freedom, and I will never question his basketball prowess again.
Beyond what he did on ball, once Thornton got the ball, he blew up plays over and over again today, where he just shut Thornton off to, they were trying to run a similar dribble handoff action to what we do at different times today, and he just blew it up. He just blew the whole play up and didn't even let Thornton get into the action. And then they were forced to, just try to kind of go on the fly from there many times today. So I thought he was just really, really impressive defensively. And then he hit shots. And like, we need Brandon to hit shots. What he's doing defensively is great. We'll talk more about who else needs to be aggressive in certain lineups later on and that sort of thing. But, man, it was really good to see some of them go down, because when you're increasing your defensive effort, and like Ray Fell was a shooter when he came into Purdue, and then he became a defensive lockdown defender. And when you're putting all that effort out on that end, sometimes it's hard to like have enough legs and just feel comfortable and go as a shooter too. So it was really good to see him get it going on both ends tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just a few comments before we move on to the stats of the game. But Blake touched on some of the point I made earlier. And he goes, I don't think we have a preseason goal to win the conference tourney, ? Has Painter ever mentioned the conference tourney as a key goal? Obviously, it's nice to win, but don't recall it being a goal. And he absolutely has. He says every year at the start of the year, and then when they get to the end, we have 3 goals. Every time he says it. We want to win the Big Ten championship. We want to win a Big Ten tournament championship. We want to get to the Final Four and win a national championship. So those are the goals, and he talks about it being a step-by-step process. He talked about that today. He's also mentioned that the tournament isn't as important if you're a team that's already in. But as we've talked about so many times here on this show, they're still fighting for a 1 seed with UCLA. So while they're in the tournament, it is of importance to win these games, as many as you can here in the tournament. And maybe, we talked with Brian Tonsoni from Delphi Bracketology, and we'll talk more about the seeding later. But he did say to us before the game started, if they win, they should be the 1 seed no matter what happens tomorrow. So that'll be interesting to see how that transpires. My guy, Jeremy Kramer, a.k.a. Air Jer, is a diehard Indiana Hoosiers fan and a good friend of mine. And he said, decisive win for Purdue today. Indiana on the constant roller coaster. Penn State physical guards in the low post. Won't matter with Edey, though. I'm sure no Purdue fan's going to sell Penn State short. They're a scrappy team that has a lot of weapons, so we'll just have to wait and see. But Edey certainly creates a matchup problem for them on the offensive side of the ball, but then they can reverse that with some matchup problems for Purdue the other way. So be a little more game of chess between Micah Shrewsberry, a former assistant coach of the Purdue Boilermakers, and behind Matt Painter. So we'll see how Painter and Shrews go at each other tomorrow. It's going to be fun to watch. So we'll move on here to the stats of the game, as we always do. And we'll read some of these off and we'll react to them. So for these stats of the game, Purdue shoots 48% from the field. Yesterday, they shot 47% from the field. So they continue the hot shooting, 28 of 58 from the field for Purdue. Ohio State shoots 42% from the field, 22 of 52 from the field. 47% from three-point land for the Purdue Boilermakers, 7 of 15. The Ohio State Buckeyes shoot 10 of 24 from the three-point line, 71%. So some hot shooting beyond the arc. Free throws, a key category for Kraig, 17 of 22 from the free throw line, 12 of 17 for the Buckeyes. Turnovers, 9 turnovers for the Buckeyes, 7 for Purdue. Points off of those turnovers, 9 for Ohio State, 6 points off of turnovers for Purdue. Rebounds, 38 rebounds. They out-rebound Ohio State 38-27. 27 rebounds and 11 offensive rebounds for Purdue, 21 rebounds and 6 offensive for Ohio State. Second chance points, 14 second chance points for Purdue, 10 for Ohio State. Bench points, 14 for Purdue, 11 for Ohio State. Points in the paint, Purdue dominates with 36 points in the paint, only 18 from Ohio State. 5 fast break points to 0 for Ohio State. 2 blocks for Purdue, 3 for Ohio State. 3 steals for Purdue, 2 for Ohio State. 18 assists from Purdue. That's a big number. 13 assists from Ohio State. Lead time. Purdue led this game for almost 30 minutes, 29 minutes and 47 seconds. And Ohio State only led for 8 minutes and 49 seconds. So, to my point earlier, it really felt like Purdue was in control of this one for the majority of the game, which was nice because we could just sit back and relax. My cousin was there, who I don't get to see pretty much ever. And it was a lot of fun to hang out with him and his kid, who I don't get to see that often. So we were kind of hanging out, in the stands, as we do here on Boilers in the Stands. So, Kraig, when you hear those numbers, what jumps out to you the most?
I'm gonna pivot today. I'm not gonna say free throws.
Not going to your wheelhouse today.
It's still an important stat, and obviously they dominated from a rebounding standpoint. But 3-point shooting. We've talked a lot about balls on this show, different types of basketballs in terms of what they play with at different levels along the season and in different places. And we've talked a lot about Purdue's 3-point shooting. Well, one of the concerns was how they would shoot with that Wilson ball. One of the concerns was, would that 3-point shooting come back at all? Over the course of 2 games in this tournament and playing with the same ball that we're going to play with in the NCAA tournament, Purdue is shooting 40% from 3. They shot, I think, 35% yesterday on a higher volume and then like 47% today. And I think that's a really, really solid sign. And if you look past the numbers a little bit, what's maybe even more promising about that is arguably our best pure shooter still hasn't got going. Like if Fletcher gets going, Mason's hitting shots, Morton's hitting shots, Newman hit shots today, Smith is hitting shots, Gillis is hitting shots. Like if we can get Fletcher going, I think we're back to being that team that can really feed the post and then feed out of that post for wide open looks. And I think we're awful hard to beat when we're knocking them down at a clip of, I don't even think we have to hit 40%. If we can shoot 35% or better from 3, I think we're a really, really tough out in the tournament.
Yeah, I think that's, I've been on the jumper train for the past few games now. I really think it's just 3-point shooting determines how far this team goes. And so that's obviously key, shooting over 40%. I put out a tweet and, last time when Purdue played Rutgers early in the year, that was their first game. In the second half, they shot parity well from 3, and then they went on a 9-game winning streak in which they shot over 40% in 7 of the 9 games. They played Ohio State, then Penn State right after Rutgers. Just kind of crazy, all the coincidence that lines up. But, that kind of happened too. Shoot better in the second half against Rutgers. That carries over to Ohio State, hopefully carries over to Penn State. And then the other one, turnovers for me. Only seven turnovers to 9 for Ohio State. And we didn't really see much pressure from Ohio State because they don't have a good press, to be honest. But I think that's key. Smith gets 5 assists and 1 turnover. That's huge. Edey, 25 shots and only 1 turnover. That's big. So I think those are the 2 key ones for me, and pretty much everywhere else, just Purdue gets the edge.
Yeah, it's, just more hot shooting, right? I mean, that's what Painter talks about, that, he knows these guys are a good shooting team. They just haven't gone down. And he's talked about that 2 straight games. And, you're starting to see it break out with the exception, with the exception of Fletcher Lawyer. So it's exciting. Brandon Newman is getting hot. David Jenkins is getting hot, as Kraig mentioned. Caleb first started getting going. He had a great first half. He's fighting for rebounds, making things difficult for guys. Mason Gillis is getting going. Now he gets to face off against Penn State, who he went straight Steph Curry on the last time they met up. Not sure if he's going to do that again, but if he does, Purdue will be hoisting a trophy. So another one on the season. So it'll be interesting, but just overall, it's good to see them, getting hot. And from the free throw line too. I mean, they had some misses. Zach Edey had 3 misses, 1 on the front end of a 1-on-1, which is crucial. But for the most part, they hit their free throws, and that's a key stat. These teams are going to try to get you in a rock fight. 2 straight games. These games are almost taking 2.5 hours because there's so many fouls, and teams have to do that against Purdue to try to even the score. That's the only option you have. So you better have depth, because you're going to start racking up the fouls. Rutgers did it, and Ohio State did it today. Penn State's going to be doing it tomorrow. And I think Penn State only plays like 7 deep. Like, I was looking on their bench. Feels like they only play 7 deep.
They'll probably go a little bit deeper against us or against Purdue just because of Edey. Like, I assume we'll see some Mahaffey minutes and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, they're not a crazy deep team. They played 8. They played 8 today because Clary's really stepped up as of late. He's kind of turned into that backup guard.
Well, let's go to the chalkboard, Joe.
Let's do it.
I don't know if you have anything dialed up. If you do, you can go right to that. But I certainly also want to know how Purdue, adjusted with the ball reversal and find, the Ohio State having a wide open 3 and how Purdue can prevent that from happening tomorrow again. But if you've got something else dialed up, go ahead. Feel free to start with that.
Yeah, I got 2 of them, and then I can kind of touch on that. I don't know if it'll be as much a chalkboard as more just pure discussion. But
have at. I'll just sit here and drink my Crown and Coke and try to learn something.
There you go. So this first one, Purdue, I saw Purdue run it a bit yesterday in the Rutgers game, and I threaded it on my Twitter. And they went to it a couple times today. It's just it's another way to get into a ball screen and just have your options from there. So starts off, it's a Ram empty pick and roll. So empty means that there's nobody in the strong side corner. And then Mason and Gillis, rolls and replaces at the end. So it starts off, Gillis sets this Ram screen, which just means it's a down screen. And then Edey comes up and sets the pick and roll. So that's all that is. And what that does is it just gets Gillis into position right down here. And it gets Edey's defender just moving just a little bit. It's not like going to take Edey's defender completely out, but it does enough. So now as Edey sets this screen, Smith comes off, Edey rolls, Gillis replaces the roll. And so now, Smith is dribbling in here. You have 7'4" National Player of the Year rolling. Maybe this is Morden or Lawyer or vice versa, or Newman or whatever. So you got shooters here or guys that can hit shots for sure. And then Gillis replaces the role, which is something in general because his defender often is going to be the one that tags. And that means that he has to come over and step in front of Edey and just basically his whole job is to not let Edey get the ball. And so as that happens, Gillis can kind of leak out here. And then Smith is an elite decision maker, so he can get to a floater if he wants. I think he got Edey once or twice on the roll, and then got Gillis. Or Gillis didn't make it, but I think he got Gillis once. So that's one of them. Just a good way to get the defense moving, kind of get put the defense in rotation, or not in rotation, but moving even before it already starts. And then just one other really quick, and it's one is really
take
simple.
your time.
It is.
This is the smartest segment of our entire program, Joe. So let's milk it for everything it's worth.
There it is. Okay, so this one is just one that they just go to, and it's really, really simple, and it just gets Edey a post touch, especially today, right? Ohio State was playing more one-on-one coverage. But like it's such a good tool to get spacing around Edey. All it is so you start in this box formation. Smith has the ball here, obviously. This is going to be a cross screen here. So Newman comes over the top. This is all this is. It's clearing out. As that happened, Gillis may pop to the corner, may pop here, whatever. Lawyer comes, and then this is kind of where the punch happens. So Edey sets a pin down here as Lawyer comes up. Pass goes here to Lawyer, and then as that's happening, Edey seals. And so now, as Lawyer gets the ball, so you have shooter with the ball. You have Braden Smith who can shoot. You have Brandon Newman who can shoot. You have Mason Gillis who can shoot. Edey, after setting the screen, has now sealed, and maybe it's more up here and getting closer to the middle. And so now all this is just a ton of spacing. So now Edey gets the ball and he has one-on-one coverage, and it's just an easy bucket. It really is just simple. It's a box, cross screen up top, and that's just for spacing. Gillis goes somewhere over in this area. Lawyer comes off of this, pass in, he seals it, and it's really simple. And Purdue goes to it. I promise you, they'll go to it at least once a game, and then if it works, they're going to keep going to it. I think they went to it 3 straight times in the second half because when Brown was in, UG Brown was in guarding Edey, they went to it because it's just you have so much spacing around him, and then ball goes in, and Edey can take care of the rest of them there. So those are the 2 for that.
And real quick, Chris Ruda has a question in the chat before you get to my question. And he said, I saw someone mention today that Purdue does an entry pass to start the game to see where the double, if any, comes from. What kind of play is that?
Honestly, the one I showed you is one of their staples. That's because I think I talked about this a little bit on Twitter is, I have no evidence of this. This is just from what I see. I really think that they use the first two or three possessions just to see where the double's coming from. And that's just so that way they know the information, right? And usually when the double's going to happen when Edey's on the block. And so that's, a play like that where, he seals off the pin down and Lawyer throws it in. Because what else? Another thing like Purdue does really, really well, a set that they go to is like this horns high low where you're in this like horns formation, which is just 2 up here and then 2 in the corner, comes off the screen, and then he dives pass here, and then it's just a high low. That's another way that they'll get to a post touch early. But I think, that box punch that I said is a good one. But yeah, I really do think they use the first 2 or 3 possessions just to collect.
And they, it got to a point where they just stopped doubling. They were basically saying, we're not going to double, and we're going to let Zach get his and try to stop everyone else. And ironically enough, everyone else just kept making their shots. So that's kind of a weird, outcome for that kind of a strategy, don't you think?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's what are you supposed to do with him? It is pretty much what it comes down to. You got to pick your spots in that.
Well, what do you think that is? Because like I almost asked that in the presser to Braden. That was the thought I had was, they double so much, and you're playing this dance of 2 Edey, back out, 2 Edey, back out. And you see so many times where like Brandon Newman or somebody will rise up and then they'll throw it into Edey because you're trying to pass up a good shot for a great one. That's what Matt Painter preaches. But like, how hard is that for these guys to find their own confidence when they're constantly thinking in the back of their head, like, should I even take this? Because we have this Goliath underneath.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. It's probably, I assume at this point, they're just so bought in that it's not even a second thought, or at least I hope. I think if you're hesitating on that, you're probably not playing under Painter. He's not going to play you at that point if you're not making the right decision. But that is interesting, especially somebody like Lawyer who struggled a bit shooting. Like, you can pass up shots and get it to Edey, and even if Edey's double teamed, like it's not a bad shot. So that's, I didn't thought about that, but that is interesting. I feel like you probably just get through it though, and
it's you just buy in. It's the smartness of this segment that's it's rubbing off on me. Now I'm coming up with good questions that are stumping Joe. Hey,
I saw somebody.
Kraig,
let's not get carried away, Greg.
By this?
Let's not get carried away, Greg. Okay?
I am going to get carried away. If you've
I had my
following me on
first
Twitter this
question.
weekend, you know I've been carried away.
I had my first question ready to go today, and then Greg threw his hand up, and they were like, "Last question," and I was like, "Well, there it goes." So
Tough.
I had my chance, and
Tomorrow, you're getting the
he stole
question
it
in
from me.
tomorrow. I promise.
Now I wanted to ask him about Gillis tagging that roller on pick and roll on defense, because they got an alley-oop like 2 or 3 times real early, and I know it's just practice, but it seemed like way more purposeful, because if you watch the rest of that game, I mean, Gillis made sure he tagged that roll man on that pick and roll every time, just put a body on him to stop him from going to the rim. And I thought he was pretty excellent on defense as well today.
Yeah, they did it a ton. If you watch like the Rutgers game too, especially with Amori, how elite he is as a lob threat. Like, and I guess maybe I'll just quickly draw it up just so everybody sees. It's usually
let's do it.
You have your ball handler here, like Kraig said, and then you have a screen here. And so as he's coming off, you have the roll man. And if it's like, say, if the ball's over here, so then you have whoever's on this weak side defender. It could be here, like say this is Gillis or something like that. He has to come over and tag. And so tag is just used because sometimes you're literally just like, you're just tagging him. But Gillis today was really, really bumping him. And so he just throws him off. And like Greg said, he did a really, really good job. And they did it against Amori. Like the first 2 plays, not the first play because Akpara bricked a 3, but whatever that was early, there was no tag. And then I'm assuming Painter got on him, and then Gillis was like, all right, yeah, I'll tag from here on out. And now there's no lob. And then that also just allows Edey to roam. That really does. If you can take away that and allow Edey just to protect the rim, and then, teams don't take shots at the rim, and then fans are mad that Edey doesn't get called for fouls. But
so now my final question here in the chalkboard segment, the dry erase board, whatever we call it in this X's and O's segment, is how do we contain giving up wide open threes when we're doubling the post and they're going to swing it around to Lundy or, this weapon in Funk that they have at Penn State, who has yet to burn us, but I wouldn't take that for granted. This guy's capable of ruining your day. So that's one of the number one guys I'm worried about keeping contained tomorrow. At one point in the first half, when they were having real problems with this and they gave up like 5 straight wide open threes and it felt like they knocked down every single one of them, I saw the assistant coaches, or maybe it was Painter, but one of them literally went off on Mason Gillis and was like, stay out there. And Mason was like, kind of like, well, what about the guy down by the hoop? And he was like, stay out there. And he was like, okay, so now explain to me that conversation and then how they adjusted and how we can prevent this from happening tomorrow. All of that on one chalkboard.
Well, I think in general, Purdue was really easy to give up the switch in the first half. It was Micah Kelly, because Micah Kelly's not a shooter at all. He cannot shoot, but he's a 6'5" physical guard that can get downhill. And so he was just going to the corner, getting Lawyer switch on him, backing him down. And Lawyer, Smith, they're just not big enough. And so likely could just back him down. And that's where it happened is, you have, I guess we'll go to it. You have him here and, you have your defender, we'll call it Lawyer. And then they were usually, they're spaced like this maybe. And then maybe they have a guy here. I'm trying to remember if they were doubling from here, if they're doubling here, then that means he's here. This defender then has to come over here and step on 2. And this guy has to come down here. And I think what Ohio State was doing is they were doing a good job of when they skip this, because this is the pass that's open, right? Is the skip pass. This defender wasn't covering enough, and this defender got pinned in pretty hard. So I think that was part of it. Really, the adjustment was they just didn't give up the switch in the second half. And part of it was they went Morton and Newman. And so now you can't really, attack Smith and Lawyer as much. Tomorrow, it's really just scheme. It's if you are going to double pick it in the post, then your rotations just have to be on. The pass away has to be right in front of, like right in that passing lane. 2 passes away has to probably cover 2, and then Penn State they space out more, and that makes it maybe a little easier as you can just play gaps. But Edey gets caught sometimes, kind of doubling or not. Gillis gets caught a little bit at times. I think the rotations just have to be on. Or the other answer is you just trust Newman or Morton, and you just kind of, if Pickett gets 20 in the paints, like, I don't want to say you live with it, but you're not giving up threes that way if you stay one-on-one.
Well, we have close to 150 people watching live and 113 people now watching on YouTube. Every single one of you people better be hitting the like button for us, please, ladies and gentlemen. We're working hard for you. Obviously we're having a lot of fun with this. So it's not much. I wouldn't define it as work, but at the same time, we'd really appreciate your support by hitting that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, hit those notifications so you know when we're going live, because sometimes you just never know when we're going to pop up, like tonight, especially in these tournaments. It's kind of, we're kind of just gunning it when it comes to when we're going to start and how we're going to do it. Tomorrow's going to be the same thing, waiting for the results of the game. And then, it may be a little bit of a longer show because we're going to react to the bracket live and do some different things. But Kraig and I will be at the United Center, and Joe and Aidan will be at home. So please hit that like button, subscribe to this channel. We're going to have a lot of great coverage for you here for the rest of March. And even after the season is over, we don't want to talk about the season being over, but we have some good guests, maybe some red shirt guests that might come on here in the postseason to talk about next year. But we're worried about this year for right now. Before we move on to the next portion of our segment, I do want to shout out our sponsors over at Shire Insurance. And so I will do that just now. And so as life changes, your insurance needs change. Shire Insurance Services in Crown Point, Indiana, representing auto owners insurance, has been helping clients with their changing insurance needs for over 25 years. As an independent agency, we love working with auto owners to provide excellent service to our clients. Buying your first home? Start with Shire. Expanding your business? Start with Shire. Your teenage driver passed the driving test and you're worried about the increased cost in auto insurance? Start with Shire. The first baby is on the way and you want to reassess your life insurance? Start with Shire. Whatever your insurance concern or need, we are ready to help make those things easier for you. So call 663-7274 or search online at www.shireinsurance.com for all your insurance needs.
You've dreamed about the perfect house, a place to call your own, and a place to not only stretch out, but to grow. Auto Owners protects your house because to you, it's home. That's simple human sense.
Ask Shire Insurance Services, serving Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, if auto owners make sense for you.
Happy to help, man. I was just over there talking to myself anyway.
That's right. Shire Insurance. Make sure you hit those guys up. So, on our last sponsor here for our shows here on the postgame, and we appreciate all the support here on Boilers in the Stands, is our guys over at Mad Mushroom Pizza. You want the best pizza in the game? Want the best cheese sticks in the game? Order from Mad Mushroom. And when you do, use the coupon code BITS for 15% off any order you make. That's the coupon code BITS for Boilers in the Stands for 15% off any order you make at Mad Mushroom. Located in West Lafayette. They got a few different locations and a brand new location on Sagamore. So make sure you go check them out. They're as good as it gets, and we appreciate their support here on this show. So,
Greg, I gotta say something after that ad read.
You can do whatever you want because I love you.
Shire, you need to drop Kraig Bowers from auto insurance, because after what I experienced going to the United Center and back today, listen,
what did you experience?
If you have gone through a driver's education course, Kraig Bowers broke at least like 30 rules and norms of what they teach you to do as a driver.
Like what?
Shire, you need to drop him immediately.
Listen, I feel like I drive like Jason Bourne. And Jason Bourne is calculated. He's a great driver. And that's what I am. Is it dangerous? That's eye of the beholder. So, I'm sorry if you got scared. That's city driving. That's just something that's ingrained in me is city driving. I have no patience for people that don't know how to city drive. Yesterday, Kraig drove, and it took every ounce of my patience to not say anything because I'm one of those people, and I'm sure there's many out there that are like this. I don't like being the passenger. I want to drive. And Kraig was like, I'll drive. And I was like, okay, you can drive. And the whole time I was just like, oh, I can't do this. I want to drive. So today I got behind the wheel and I showed him what's up, So, was there some moments that feel death defying? I mean, not to me because I know what I'm doing. I'm precision. I'm Jason Bourne.
We got flipped off at least 3 times today.
No
Joe.
way.
At
Just
least 3
the one
times.
person. He got mad because I couldn't decide what lane I wanted to be in. But you know what? They can get over it. I'm trying to get home too. So, yeah, exactly. If everyone drives endangerly, then we don't have to worry about the safe drivers who are ruining it for everyone else. So I've always said driving to Chicago is safer than driving down 65 on West Lafayette in the 2-lane highway road. I hate it. So much better with 4 lanes where I can zip in and out wherever I want to go. We get there nice and quickly. So sorry for scaring you, Kraig, but you're going to have to deal with it again tomorrow. So
it's okay, buddy. It's okay. I survived. I only piddled my pants twice, so we're good to go.
Willie wants to know if we took Craig's tractor yesterday. No, we did not.
I don't actually own a tractor, so sorry to disappoint.
He does not
own one. Are you a farmer not own a tractor? I guess you do animals more. Right?
It's a long story. I only need it twice a year, and I just rent it from the neighbor. So
Midwest Ogre says, Craig's never driven through Chicago traffic the right way. That he did today, ladies and gentlemen. I gave him a crash course, no pun intended, on how you get through the city nice and quickly. So let's move on. Again, hit that like button, please. We appreciate everybody tuning in. But let's get to some of the individual stats of the game, some of the players that we want to highlight. Yeah, so Chris says, what? You mean you don't like waiting behind a truck? I didn't see it, but it's okay. Well, it says, you don't like waiting behind a truck passing another truck breaks? No, I don't like waiting, period. I'm in front of everyone. We won't talk about how fast I drive. We just know that I drive really good. Anyway, so Zach Edey, we're starting with him. National Player of the Year. I mean, you heard whispers in the stands that were like, Zach didn't even have a good game because he missed all these bunnies. And the field goal shooting kind of shows that. He was 12 of 25 from the field. Easily could have made 8 more of those shots. I mean, they were right at the rim. A couple of them where he felt like he got slapped or fouled or whatever. But at the end of the day, he ends up with 32 points, 8 of 11 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 foul, and 1 turnover in 35 minutes of play. So keeping the turnovers down, not fouling. I mean, I think that's the story of the season for Zach Edey of why he's going to win National Player of the Year, because the reason he's able to be so effective is A, he plays so many minutes, but B, the reason he plays so many minutes is because he's able to, because he stays out of foul trouble and he has incredible stamina for a guy as big as he is. He has all this skill and talent and everything else, and he's just a force to be reckoned with. But his availability, because of his lack of foul trouble and his stamina to be able to play 35 minutes and not really look winded throughout, while the guy that's guarding him looks tired as a dog. So, credit to Zach Edey once again, putting on a show at the United Center.
Yeah, he was awesome. The National Player of the Year, we, based on the matchup and stuff, we kind of, I thought we expected a big game from him. I don't want to say he's struggled as of late, but he hasn't put up the insane numbers. And this is the matchup that he can. And Penn State is another matchup where he possibly could, depending on what they do. But this is the perfect matchup for Edey. One big and he's still young. He's going to be good, but young and they legit couldn't do anything. You double him and then he's going to make the right read. You leave him one-on-one and he's just going to get to whatever spot he wants. It's literally 12 of 25 today from the field. It felt like it should have been 16 or 17. he could have easily had 40, I think.
No, he should have had 40. I mean, there were so many shots today that he normally makes, and I have no idea how many balls were halfway down and popped back out for both TKR and for Edey both today. But I mean, we win by what, I think 14. Really, that should have been a 25-point win. Zach could have easily had 40. TKR could have easily had 10. It just, for whatever reason, for both of those guys, the ball just wasn't going down on shots that they normally do. And like I said, I mean, multiple of them were halfway down and just popped back out. I have no idea what was happening there.
Yeah, no, it was tough.
Yeah, and then another point that I wanted to bring up in one of our starred comments from Derek Lucic, was anyone still amazed at how many rimmed out for Edey? Was one of them. And then the other one that I wanted to bring up was Taterology says Edey's extended defense looked really good today. And I agree with this. And Joe, I want you to touch on this as well, because, I feel like one of the things that we see with Zach is obviously guys trying to pull him out to the 3-point line. And as I was explaining to some people around me, like, yeah, you think that's a good matchup because it's a mismatch. You see it in the NBA all the time. A guard gets switched on a big, and there's Zach Edey on an island. I think the only guy to really take advantage of that was Michigan State's guard at Michigan
Walker.
State when, Walker just went absolutely insane making some shots. But the thing I think people don't realize is while on its surface it looks like a mismatch, you got to really separate yourself from Zach from the 3-point line. You even got to take a step back or two because, you can get him, moving his feet and then pull up for the shot, but he's still going to adjust your shot. You can't just shoot your normal form and arc. You have to adjust your arc when he's, putting his hand up like he does. And, it's just not easy whether you're inside or outside. So, I agree with this. There was a few times that Zach Edey came out on the perimeter and the guys didn't knock down shots because he's affecting them no matter where he is on the court.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, and when we think of when Walker burned Edey, it was 2 step backs that were contested, and it's just like, all right, good shot, like legitimately good shot. You made a good shot. And then the other one was when he moved off ball. This one-on-one, like Thorne did it today. He gets the switch from Edey, and what does he do? He settles into like a pull-up 3 feet behind the line. Like, I think guards get this mismatch, and they're like, oh, this is a good, like, let me go to work. And then they're like, wait a sec. Not saying that Edey won't get burned, but I think it's a little more difficult than players think. Like, the only ones that can do it is if you have really good body control and move, like, you can change your speed. If you run one speed at Zach Edey towards the rim, Edey's going to time it. Like, his first move is going to be back. He's not going to, he's not jumping up there. Like, his first move is going to be back to the rim. If you can change speed, then that's when you get him a little bit in trouble, like Coach Fino did a bit. But when guards go straight at him, like I've been kind of saying it all year, is like it doesn't usually work for him. It really doesn't. It's like you got to get him moving first.
You try to get him on the pick and roll, he's going to follow you to the rim and swat that into the stands or off the backboard. As you mentioned, the change of the speed where he has to like stop and start is where you might get him. And those that are good at like going up and under and doing some different things. So it's almost like if Zach's already in the post and you're coming right at him when he's at a standstill, then you go around him, go up and under. That's almost more beneficial than if you carry him out to the 3-point line and then you try to play a race to the hoop. Because Zach moves his feet well and he's got good speed and he's got good feet for a big guy his size. He's gonna, like you said, he's gonna chase you down. He's gonna time it. He's gonna block it. So, I think that is an underrated part of Zach's game that was on display at times today. So I thought that was a salient point by Taterology. Taterology. So let's go on to some other guys and talk about some more individual play. And let's just, I know we talked a lot about Brandon Newman. So, Joe, I'll just let you handle this quickly because, we talked a lot about his impact, but specifically in this game, the numbers wise, maybe talk about some of the things he did well on the offensive side of the ball. 15 points, 5 of 7 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, 3 of 4 from the line, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. 3 fouls in 32 minutes of play. You know, he just continues to really be an impact player for this team now that he's in the starting lineup.
Yeah, you know, he did a great job. I will say, like, Newman played great. He was a little bit of the garbage time, you know, merchant today. 8 of his 15 came in the final.
Bitcoin's gonna be on your ass for that one.
No, he played really well. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the pure points. He did score 8 in the last 2.5 minutes. But honestly, and that's something I wanted to bring up, is like, for a guy like Newman that, you know, you want to keep getting his confidence up and up, like, yeah, like, it's kind, you know, it's funny to be like, oh, you know, he scored over half his points in garbage time, but like, that's important. Like, that's now momentum carried into the next game. Keep the jumper going. We know the defense is there, and that was the mistakes, and the defense was when a month and a half ago, Newman was terrible at both, like, just straight up was bad at both, and he's changed that. He's absolutely changed that. He is now, you know, he is probably the best perimeter defender, him or Borden. He's making smart decisions. You see it. He's not forcing a shot. He's passing up okay looks for, you know, getting Edey in the post. But yeah, I think, you know, I really think we hit on all the Newman stuff. Like, he's very much needed for this team. He provides an element that we don't have.
He's amazing. He's amazing, Bitcoin. Sydney, once again, I'm impressing people with my words. Said salient, and now everybody's blown away because the meatball bricklayer brought out another good word. I don't know where they come from. My mom was an English
Your mom.
major, so
your
that's
mom.
That's where they came from. Shout out to Barb, English major, taught me good words. So did Sports Center and movies, but mom first and foremost. Before we go on to another player that we want to highlight, Richard Scott King brings up something that we haven't brought up in today's show that kind of gets lost in the midst of you know, a pretty, you know, a 14-point win. So it doesn't feel as significant as it did in the moment. But you know, in the first half, Ohio State was in control. At one point, they had a 9-point lead or so, and they're knocking down threes. And I'm looking at Kraig like, here we go. We're going to be in another dogfight. And Purdue started to claw away, but then right as Purdue was starting to get to a point where they could tie the game, they make a basket, and then there's a foul underneath the hoop on Zach Edey. And then they review it, and it becomes a hook and hold, which is then 2 shots and ball for Purdue after the made basket. And it was a huge swing of momentum, 6 points before Ohio State got the ball back. And before you know it, Purdue is up, and they never looked back after that. Kraig, you know, your observations when that happened, and, you know, how much of a momentum swing was that?
Did they call that on Edey initially? I thought they called a common foul on the Ohio State player.
Right.
And
It was a common foul that they then reviewed and turned it into a hook and hold.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, letter of the law, hook and hold. Like, I don't even think it was close. And from the video review that I saw, I thought it was pretty obvious. But yeah, I mean, that was a huge momentum change. And I think Purdue was already kind of starting to, you felt the momentum shifting before that. But nonetheless, I mean, I think it was a 4-point swing, really, but that obviously cut it. And then, you know, we continued momentum later in that half, and Jenkins hit a big 3 later that I think was also huge, just momentum wise for Purdue as we tried to climb back into it. And then that just fed over into a pretty dominant second half. I take a little bit of issue with Joe's garbage time comment with Newman, because I did not feel comfortable right down the stretch there. So like I would not call those true garbage time points.
That's
like
fair.
He hit some shots when, if we don't hit those shots, the game gets a heck of a lot more interesting. And we saw it in the Penn State IU game when Braggs was rolling his eyes at me when I wanted to stay. That can happen. So I wouldn't call those garbage time points by any stretch of the means for me personally.
Yeah, let me paint the picture, Joe, because at the end of the IU game, they're up 9 with like a minute to go. And I left my seat where I was sitting with my cousin. I come over to Kraig, who's a few rows ahead of me, sitting with Brian Tonsoni and Steve Painter from Delphi Bracketology. And I said, Kraig, let's go. And he's like, the game ain't over yet. I'm like, it's over. The 9-point game. It's over. And then I'm like, fine, whatever. We'll sit here. This is stupid. And then as 40 seconds later, they cut it to 2. And each time they cut the lead, Kraig would just give me this ominous look. And then when they cut it to 2, I look over and he's already looking at me with this death stare. And it was like the girl in The Water Boy that's like, that's what it's gonna be. And I look over and he's like I was like, God damn it, this is happening right now, isn't it? And then luckily it didn't happen, but I wanted to give some context because it was a really funny moment at the end of the day today.
Yeah, that's fair. I did
But
not
go
expect...
ahead with your rebuttal to Kraig.
Oh,
as far as the
I was
discussion
in
is
my
concerned.
head, maybe I was optimistic. With about 10, 12 left, I was like, this game's over. I just didn't think Ohio State had an answer. So at that point, we're like 7 minutes past me thinking it's over. And that's probably why I thought it's closer to garbage time. Also, I bring it up because when Ohio State, the last time when Purdue won by like 20, Sensabaugh put up like 11 points against the actual walk-ons. And Newman didn't do that. Newman was not that. So I should clarify.
Yeah, and he's taking it to the rim at the end, right? A few of them where he's taking it to the rim, nice
shots.
off the glass. And yeah, it wasn't over. I mean, Purdue does what they have to do, and they're pretty good at the end of the game this year when they have a lead like that. But Brandon taking it to the rim like that, getting comfortable, being aggressive, not just from the 3-point line, is only going to help him here tomorrow and going forward in March.
Well, and in the past, I've gotten nervous when he's tried to use his dribble drive, if I'm being honest, because, Brandon didn't come in with the best handle when he came to Purdue. That's been well documented by some other comments from previous players that have been on the show and whatnot. And that's really why he redshirted. Just handle wasn't good enough that first year. And then, even at times over the last couple of years, anytime he tries to attack off the dribble, I'd get a little bit of an empty pit feeling in my stomach. But man, the last 3, 4, 5 games, he's made some really good moves, and he doesn't have to attack all the way to the rim. That's what he's done really well. Before he would go, and once he went, he already had his mind made up of what he was doing. And now he's reading it as he's attacking, or he's attacking not with the purpose to get all the way to the rim. He's attacking just to get 2 feet in the paint. That forces all the rotation on defense to change, moves people around, and then he can find somebody from there. And he's doing that really well. And if he stops and people sag off him, he just shoots that little 5-footer. And I think that element of his game has greatly changed the outlook of what he can do offensively.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Joe, this is what we do here. And Michael Hogg asks a question, and you're going to bust out that chalkboard again. He says, can Joe bring the clipboard back out and go through how Caleb was open for dunks, but the backdoor lanes were closed?
Yeah, I mean, and actually this works because I wanted to transition to, I wanted to hit on first at some point.
Let's talk first. We'll get to Braden Smith here in a second, but let's talk first.
Definitely need to.
Let's talk.
We give the people what they want here on Boilers in the Stands.
Yeah, let's talk first. And
shout out to everybody that's tuning in or may tune in later, that's seen us at the United Center over the last couple of days and said hi. We really appreciate that. It means a lot to us. We got stopped on the way out. And we really appreciate that, because it, at least for me, it shows the work we're putting in here. And I know the guys feel the same way when we meet some of you in person. We'd love to meet all of you in person. Maybe we'll do a big meetup next year. So we appreciate that. So Michael has got his question. Let's find out how those dunks got, fed to Caleb first.
Yeah. And it's just basic principle for Purdue is, you have Edey with the ball here, right down here in the post. And I think this leads to another point of like, if you don't double the post normally, like your rotations are just out of whack and it's tough to guard. And so, Edey's here, we'll say, and then this first honestly he could be here. 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 It doesn't actually matter where he's at. He's going to just dive. He's going to this opposite block right here. And that's where he's ending up. And that's That's a Purdue thing. That's a Gillis thing. It doesn't really matter who's at the 4 as I look for my eraser. There it is. And so on this one, I think he had one where he comes, he's here. And so his defender is here, comes over, doubles. First just comes here. And like, if you have another guy up here, he has to come down and stop first. But it just wasn't there because Ohio State didn't rotate well. Even if Edey's here and gets it and first is up here and he cuts, if his guy comes to double and, we have somebody over here, again, this defender has to come over and step in this lane. Otherwise it's an easy pass. And, teams are in the Big Ten, especially, are really, really good at it because they just have to play it all the time. I think that's kind of a segment that shows like where Ohio State struggled, right? Like just not a great defensive team. And that was one of the things is like, you just don't rotate well. And I think it gives me a little hope for March too, of like, if these teams haven't had to double the post normally in their life or in their season, like it's tough to just put in, especially on if it's the second game and you have a 1-day game plan to do it. Like if you're not normally doing it, it's tough to do. You got to be sharp. Like Purdue wasn't sharp with theirs today and they normally do it. And they got burned. So that's where it is. And then the backdoors in general, I think he's just saying in the flow of the offense. I think that's just the way Ohio State played defense. Pretty aggressive. They're not going to help a ton. And that just kind of shuts down. Like if somebody's cutting, they're going to stay with them. I think that would be my answer there. But
yeah. So here's Oh, that's not it. I was just showing this, the drop off. This is exactly what we're talking about. He
comes over indecisive.
And indecisive, doesn't double strong enough, and you're kind of caught on an island. You're trying to play both guys. Edey can go right over you. I know this was probably not one of their better opponents in the season, but there's an example of it. So let's go to Braden Smith. Kraig just pulled up a stat, and I want him to read it off. I will say Corey Lesney's in the chat and being vocal about Brandon Newman. We have now put, a halt on any Brandon Newman slander here on Boilers in the Stands.
No, don't say slander.
No,
it was
slander.
just critique. It was critique.
critique.
We weren't slandering him.
Yeah, of course not. We're just not saying you're only allowed to say positive things about Brandon Newman because we've talked about him so much this year and he is balling out. And he loves saying the saying that I love saying, which is brick by brick. He's from the region. So there will be no anything but positive about Brandon Newman. We are overreacting about Brandon Newman because he deserves the overreaction because he's playing out of his mind. And he's going to lead us to a damn Final Four. So here comes our breakdown. Yeah, I said it, to Braden Smith. And I'll read off the stats of the game for Braden, and then Kraig, I'll let you take it away with some of the stuff on a historical measure that Braden's doing. He had 14 points on 5 of 5 shooting, 2 of 2 from the 3-point land, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 foul, 1 turnover in 30 minutes of play. So we have 3 guys on this team that played over 30 minutes: Zach Edey, Brandon Newman, and Braden Smith. And they had a combined 2 turnovers amongst the 3 of them in almost 100 minutes of play in today's game. So Braden Smith, a big reason why Purdue was able to pull away.
And I thought Braden played an extremely good game today. I think he had one time where he got off his feet under the basket and made a bad decision. But outside of that, I thought he was just really, really good and really balanced in terms of when he decided to attack, when he decided to pass. There was a couple of different times where they were trying to get it to Zach and the system offense wasn't working and he just drove down, pivoted, and he likes to drive down to the same side as him, get 2 people to come to him, and then pivot back and throw that little bounce pass to Zach down there, that's not an easy, it may look easy, but that is not something that's easy to do in terms of getting defenders to commit and then making that pass and making that pass accurately. That's really, really hard to do. But I just thought for the most part today, his decision-making was on point. And I will say it, and I will say it over again. I think before it's said and done that Braden Smith's going to go down as one of the all-time point guards in Purdue history. And there's some numbers that were put out today that backs that up. So per Purdue men's basketball account, Braden Smith became the 4th freshman in Big Ten history with 330 points, 140 rebounds, and 140 assists. The other 3 people on that list, Magic Johnson, D'Angelo Russell, who's having a good NBA career, and Jaquan Lyle from Ohio State, who was a heck of a college player. I mean, that's some amazing company to be in. And
Magic Johnson.
Right. He's balling out. And I got, I told you earlier, Greg, I kind of got into it with, I'm a big fan of Greg Waddell from Sleepers Media and Field of 68, but we got into it a little bit earlier today on Twitter because he was talking about Purdue handling the press, and he was kind of throwing in at Braden. And I'm like, nah, that's not the direction you need to throw that, because in the games where Braden's been pressed, it's not really been Braden who's turned the ball over when we've struggled with it. It's normally that second ball handler that the ball goes to that sometimes we get in some trouble. Braden has really few turnovers in actual press situations himself.
Yeah. Sorry, I was gone for half a sec. But
it's not okay.
Yeah, my bad.
You're fired.
It's okay. I do it all the time, Joe.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
I fired Kraig yesterday for his Michael Jordan slander in the United Center, the house that Jordan built. And now you're fired. So it would basically just be me rambling.
We're back to Brags in the stands.
That wouldn't be good. We need you. I need you guys. So you're both rehired.
We were talking about Braden Smith and his greatness pretty much, right? That summarizes.
Yeah, he broke down the numbers. I don't know if you want to read them again to Joe, Kraig, but he basically, go ahead and read them again. How about we do that?
Well, yeah. The 4th freshman in Big Ten history with 330 points, 140 rebounds, and 140 assists. And the other 3 people were Magic Johnson, D'Angelo Russell, and Jaquan Lyle from Ohio State. That's pretty decent company. I mean, that's how I feel when I'm in the room with Greg, Joe, and Aidan. Like
that's my mom.
Well, get him, Mom. There's no allowance of stepping away. No, I'm kidding. We can step away. But, and you weren't here, but Kraig basically said he's better than Magic Johnson. I thought it was a steep prediction, but he said that.
Not what
and
I
was like, I'm all for it. But it's lofty expectation. Magic Johnson, one of the greatest to ever play the game.
Maybe the greatest.
I said he's better.
I was back for that part when Kraig was like, Braden Smith is better than it was. Kraig Bowers of Boiler Diehard said Braden Smith is better than Magic Johnson.
Raphael Davis said he would lock up Pickett, right? And Kraig saying Braden Smith would give Magic Johnson the business. And if we got to bring Walter Jordan on again and prove that to him, and I highly recommend our lowest viewed interview of this year, and it really pisses me off, honestly.
Me too. Is
the Walter Jordan interview.
And it's probably our best interview.
Timing wise, I don't know. But anybody watching this show can scroll back on our timeline on YouTube and watch the Walter Jordan interview where we talk historical basketball from his playing days, going up against Larry Bird in high school. He has stories of Larry Bird when he was in high school. The man was amazing, passionate, positive, and talked a lot of big picture stuff about the Boilers. If you haven't watched the Walter Jordan interview, like, get the hell out of here and go watch it right. Like, it irritates me. He was such an amazing guest. He probably is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done across any sport. So please go watch the Walter Jordan interview. It irritates me that it didn't get enough play.
It was when I wasn't there for that show, right? I think I had to watch that show, and maybe it's because I wasn't on it then, but that literally is my favorite show of any show that we've done, and I wasn't on it. That was my suggestion as a guest, though. So that's my claim to fame. That my favorite interview, I at least suggested the guest.
You brought on Raphael Davis twice. Jared Harder was great. Another interesting, unique interview, and Walter Jordan just was amazing. And we're going to bring him on again. He's become somewhat of a friend to this show. And
before we jump, if you don't want to watch the video, you can, subscribe. We're on Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. Just plug it in, driving, whatever, going for a walk, whatever you're doing. You can listen on the podcast too. You don't get the visuals, So we do obviously recommend that because that's part of what we do here. But there is that too for those that want to just kind of have it on as they're going about their business.
Yeah, there's one of my tangents. Once we get past the hour mark, the tangents start growing, and that was one.
This show might be 2.5 hours. I'm going to be honest. We got a lot to cover,
and we're giving
for the record,
I'm having fun.
Tomorrow's going to be. I'm scared for how long tomorrow's show will be. I really.
You talked about Rafael Davis, and for the record, he was talking about taking people on and like pregame when he was out there shooting around, and I went at him and said I'd take him on one-on-one right then, and he backed down. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I tried.
I offered, and he said no.
So, and I was talking to Bobby Riddell while Rafael Davis was taking jumpers on the court that Michael Jordan once graced, and he was knocking some down, and I tried to get Bobby to take Rafe one-on-one, and I was going to video it. But Bobby, I guess, didn't want that smoke or something. We're going to have to ask him. I don't know. Then I threatened Bobby that I could post him up, and he claimed he'd hit me with that Jordan fadeaway. So a lot of fun stuff. It's kind of the beauty of being able to get in there early before anybody else is there.
You mean the Kobe fadeaway, right?
Kraig, listen, man, you're pissing me off. Something fierce. So, some of these images you're seeing here today that we've been bringing up. Here's Caleb first on some of these backdoor dunks and Edey dropping them off. They come from Indiana Sports Coverage. Make sure you follow them on Twitter at ISC_Purdue. They're good friends of ours, good friends to the show. Dave Kovich, Ben Kolodzinski, and the whole gang over there does such a great job covering all Purdue sports, and these images come from them. So make sure you're following them all day long, and we'll continue to shout them to the mountaintops. And there's somebody in that picture that we may or may not interview here in the next 2 months. You'll just have to wait and see. But it's fun to see the guys getting excited, on the sidelines because they're having an opportunity to get another trophy tomorrow. Let that confetti come raining down on them again. Get used to that, because it's funny when teams lost on Friday as we were walking out, you'd hear fans go, well, like Illinois fans or whoever, they're like, well, now they get some extra rest before the tournament. Like, you just play the rationalization game. And if Purdue had lost, we would have been doing the same thing. I mean, it's just what fans do. But now you're here. You get to the championship. Today was somewhat of a, I'm not going to say easy game, but it wasn't the bloodbath that the Rutgers game was, as far as physicality is concerned. Now you go up against Penn State, and it's going to be a dogfight. It'll certainly be interesting to see how that transpires. But now that you're there, you might as well go win the whole damn thing. So it'll be interesting to see if they can. But now that we've touched on Braden Smith, Brandon Newman, Zach Edey, Caleb First to an extent, I don't know if there's anybody else individually that you want to take a look at. Go ahead, Kraig, fire away.
David Jenkins Jr.
Yes,
I have said all year, said it multiple times on this show, that I still thought he was going to have his time when he was really important. And for me, I really thought that was going to be postseason where, freshmen are experiencing that for the first time and you need experienced leadership to step up. And you kind of wondered if David could just turn it on at different times. And we've seen him do it in his shot clock, but maybe not super consistently at times when he could turn it on, turn it off. But man, he's proven me right so far because the last 2 games, he has just stepped up really big in some big spots. And he is stepping into his shot so confidently right now. And I put out a tweet when we were going for like that 2-for-1 and he shot the ball like in the first 6 seconds of the shot clock. Like what is David Jenkins Jr. doing? He's not allowed to shoot the ball unless there's 3 seconds on the shot clock. But I think his experience and just being comfortable in big time moments, I think he's going to pay big time dividends as we finish out tomorrow and then look at the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think, he's has the leadership. He has just the pure shot making ability of I'm just going to get a bucket. I think I saw a clip on the Purdue socials of, Jenkins just was basically at that 10 and a half. Painter told Jenkins just like, hey, fire that thing up. Like, don't worry about the clock. Just fire that thing up. And then Jenkins was like, all right, bet. Like, I'll do that. Knocks it down, obviously.
Yeah, because when he put that up, we're also trained by we are also trained as fans by Matt Painter and what he preaches. They get the ball back with however many seconds, but they can take the last shot. So anytime somebody gets a rebound and the shot clock is null and void, you go last shot. That's what any good basketball watcher will say. And David Jenkins comes down the court and pulls up with 7 seconds left. And I'm sitting next to Kraig. I'm like, what are you doing? And then he knocks it down. And I'm like, nice. Never mind. I'll just shut up over here in the stands.
Yeah, I forgot about that moment. You were as soon as it left his hand, I said that's good. And at the same time, you were saying, what are you doing? And then he hit it. And I stared at you a lot today. I turned and just kind of went like,
you give me glares. You do. I mean, I say a lot of stupid things, so I get it. But I do get the Kraig glare a handful of times every day. Yes. And that's fine. Anybody, I need to be checked. I'm off the rails. I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve. I'm passionate, and I'm also crazy.
For people that don't
and a little stupid. So there's all that to deal with.
For the people that don't know the Kraig Bowers glare, just ask my former students or my children. They will tell you that Kraig Bowers yelling is not intimidating, but my stare can look right through your soul. So Greg got into
2 points was the best one I got of the day.
Greg literally shriveled in his chair just from my stare. It just looks right through you.
If IU had won that game, I don't know if I could have rode home with him. We might have had to call an Uber because it was not going to end well for me. It was, I basically jinxed it at that point. So, somebody asked in the chat, Joe, why did David Jenkins minutes shrink today?
Just matchup, flow of the game. As good as Jenkins is, he's still 6'1", and you can only play him so much with Smith. He was good. He knocks down shots. He's doing what he needs to. I think it's just matchup. I think there's going to be a game if there could be a matchup in the tourney. He plays 25 minutes. I think there's a matchup that if Smith's just going off, and maybe Jenkins plays 8 to 10. I think it's more just matchup and flow. And I think that transitions me. I know we're kind of wrapping up the Ohio State stuff, but my last thing, I want to talk about Painter just one more time. Well,
real quick before you do, and you're welcome to talk about whatever you want, Joe. But Willie Dean says 22 points to go, and I'm assuming he's referring to David Jenkins getting to 2,000 points. So they have a lot of motivation to move on in March, but this is probably a big one. I hope that they use as some sort of a rallying cry. Let's get David Jenkins to 2,000 points. He sacrificed to come play for Purdue. He thought he was going to be a starter. He graciously accepted the role when Braden Smith showed just how talented he is as a point guard. And here David Jenkins is playing on one of the best teams in the country, winning a Big Ten championship, having a chance to win a Big Ten tournament championship, and he still can achieve the goal of 2,000 points potentially with 22 to go. So you need a good handful of games for him to get to that point. So let's get the push for David Jenkins Jr. to get to 2,000 points in his career.
Yeah, 100%. I have no good transition to talk about Painter, but I want to talk about Painter. I was looking for something and just nothing. I was like, all right, well, this is a flop.
You got to work on your segues there, Joe.
Yeah, no, I do for sure. Everybody's got to watch film. I know I got some stuff, maybe even with the X's and O's. Like I got to get in the lab. Off season, we'll come back even better next year. But I thought Painter pushed all the right buttons today. I really did. Like I said early, he was given the switch, or Purdue was given the switch of Lawyer going on to Likely when they were putting Likely at the 3, and then he just backs him down, double comes, and then you're out of rotation, and they hit like 85 threes. It felt like, So to counter that, he goes with the Morton Newman lineup, which is a defense lineup. Now that works really well in this game, right? Because when Morton and Newman are in, especially if it's with first two, that offensive lineup is not good. Just straight up, like it has not been good. But if you have Edey going like today, then it can be fine because it doesn't, Newman and Morton can both shoot the ball pretty well, or whatever you want to call their shooting at this point. But they can shoot the ball. So now Edey gets his going, and it doesn't matter really who's around him because he has one-on-one. So he goes to the Newman Morton, just kind of shuts down Ohio State on their early run. And then even in the second half, when, the first sub likely comes in and Lawyer gets subbed out, it was straight in the second half. It was back to just matching up there. And then even when Lawyer was in, they were not given the switch. I saw Lawyer was, fought through screens better and stuff like that, or not better, but it was just schemes. He fought through. Now they're not giving up the switch. Now Purdue is in rotation. Now Ohio State's getting more and more tired because they're having to work harder for shots. Now their bigs are in even more foul trouble, and now Likely's playing the five, and it just kind of cycled from there. And I just thought, I think there's maybe not this year as much, but there's been pushback on Painter of like not making good adjustments and stuff like that. And not saying that he's above criticism, but I thought he was phenomenal today, and that's kind of just all I wanted to say about that.
Well, and Painter openly talks about his learning curve. I mean, if you listen to him in the post-game press conference today where he talks about it's a copycat league and you steal from people and you watch the NBA and you watch other leagues and everything else, he's been really, really open about like, I was who I was then and I continue to learn. And he talks about there's some camp that when he was just starting out in coaching that he went to, and I heard him in some podcast or show just talking about the fact that he still goes there now, and that a lot of coaches, like once they get successful, quit going. And he goes, I'm always learning, I'm always searching, and I'm with you. I think just this season as a whole, I think he's been more on point with adjustments and strategy than he's been any year. Without a doubt. And I think the proof is in the pudding a little bit, and I don't want to offend anybody or offend anybody about this team, but like, I don't think this is Purdue's most skilled team that he's ever had. I'm not sure that it's even the second most skilled team that he's ever had, but you add Painter's acumen in terms of learning and changing and growing and knowing how to use certain lineups and how to take advantage of certain mismatches and situations. And he's figured that out to the nth degree with this team right now. And it is a really good team with a bunch of skilled players.
Yeah, absolutely. Painter's been in his bag all year long, which is why he should have won Coach of the Year. And every single person, I won't name names, every single person that I've quizzed on who do you think, Matt, because the coaches vote.
Don't go here. Don't go here.
Don't go there every time. I
don't
care.
Go here.
I'm doing it. Every single person.
Hey, I'm your get back coach. Coach. Don't go there.
All right. Now you're muted. So every single person I've quizzed on, because the coaches vote for Coach of the Year in the Big Ten. Every single person I've quizzed, I've said, who do you think Matt Painter voted for? Every single person says Chris Collins. And then I say, who do you think Chris Collins voted for? And every single person smirks and then says Chris Collins. That's all you need to know. I don't care what anybody says. All due respect to Chris Collins. I understand why he did it. I know Matt Painter well enough to know that he would never vote for himself in a million years. So I would push I'll put my whole mortgage on it. I have no doubt. But I do love that we have a
MSU fan.
Yeah, we have a Michigan State fan in our chat. Welcome. Earlier, we had an Illinois fan. He is a friend. His name's Chubbs. Total jackass, but I love him. He's my friend. And then we also had an IU fan in my other friend, Air Jer, So now we have a Michigan State fan. So all the fan bases are coming together here to find out about Boilers in the Stands. And that's a great thing. So welcome, YT Sparty, White Sparty. I don't know what your YouTube name is.
YT?
Whitey Sparty. I don't know, but he's a Sparty. And you know what? Make him welcome in the chat, even if he says wrong things. So it's all good. Let's look around the landscape of college basketball. I think unless you have anybody else you'd like to touch on individually or anything else, maybe we can.
I think that's it, because I still want to talk about the Penn State game a bit too.
Okay,
and then also this.
That's a good order of operations. Let's have you preview what you think going into the Penn State game. Then to end the show, we'll talk about the landscape of college basketball and anybody we want to talk about the Big Ten as far as who's going to make the tournament or not and seeding and otherwise. But as far as your preview for Penn State, Purdue, tomorrow afternoon at the United Center for the Big Ten Tournament Championship.
Yeah, I think my first thing right. So Purdue won both games they won the first one by 13, second one by 20. The second game, in terms of analysis, you kind of just toss out the window, I think. Unless Gillis makes 9 threes again, but then the analysis is Purdue wins and Gillis hit 9 threes, and that's pretty much about it. It's just not likely, but the first win, the 13-point win, it was close at half. Pickett got going, but that was really it. Lundy had a few. It's an interesting chess match, right? Like Penn State is obviously going to play small. They'll throw Najai in a little bit, maybe 20 minutes, and that's really their only true big. They'll throw Hen in some too, but even then, they're both, he's 6'8", and so it's how does Purdue match the spacing and shooting that Penn State has 1 through 5, but how does Penn State match Edey? And the first matchup, it was Smith and Edey, the pick and roll. Smith torched him, just absolutely played with him in that first matchup. I think Penn State's much better defensively now, and I think they've shown that in this tourney, and that's why they're here, right? They've won 3 very close games, and it hasn't been elite shooting. I don't think, off the top of my head, I don't think I'm pulling up the stats now. 38, 35, and 35% for 3 their past 3 games. That's what we're going to get tomorrow, right? That's probably the minimum, right? They're going to hit 35 to 38, and then you just hope that they don't go more. The very first thing that I'm going to watch is one, who gets Pickett. If assuming it's the same starters, it's going to be Newman. And then does Painter trust Newman one-on-one with Pickett in the post? If you can do that, and it's a big if because Pickett is so dang good, if you can trust him, it makes it a lot easier because now you can stay at home, right? You can stay at home on the shooters. You don't have to help. You don't have to get in rotation, but Pickett's so good that he might just drop 20 on post-ups. So that'll be the first thing. And then, kind of the second thing is just what do they do with Edey? I assume they double on the catch. And so now, guys are going to have to step out and make some shots, cut well, first and Gillis. But, I just don't know how they stop Edey and Smith in pick and roll is where I'm at. And then you just got to contest.
When they were at what's the name of the stadium?
Palestra.
The Palestra. I mean, Braden Smith put on a damn show in the second half on the pick and roll and the alley-oops to Zach Edey. I mean, he couldn't be stopped for a stretch of 7 minutes. And then, of course, the atomic bomb that was Mason Gillis when they met at Mackey, hitting 9 threes, or I think 9. Was it 9 threes or 11 threes? I think he was 9 of 11 from 3-point line.
Yeah, 9 of 12 or something.
Setting a 3-point record at Mackey Arena. Mason Gillis, a forward. I doubt that happens tomorrow, but I wouldn't put it past. All these guys are capable, as Matt Painter said. So it'll be interesting. Kraig, your thoughts on
this? This matchup is all about. Sometimes in football, you get a team that wants to run the ball and you get a team that wants to throw the ball around, and it's like which system or which way will work out, and what one team is good at, the other team isn't, and vice versa. And it's just a will of which way will win. And so far in the last 2 games, our way has won. And even though Gillis went off for all those threes, the reason he was as open as he was is because they were so worried about Zach. The reason that Braden controlled the pick and roll so much was because they were so worried about Zach. So it all comes back to Zach. I mean, Gillis had to knock those shots down. I don't want to take anything away from that, but he was getting wide open looks all day that day, and he hit them. So I think Penn State can do things that's really hard for us to defend. But we have to assert our will in terms of what we want to do at a higher level and a higher efficiency rate than what they can do. The one thing I will say is in both games, Lundy didn't get going. And Lundy can be, Pickett's going to go. even today he struggled a little bit, and I said he had a little bit of the yips at some point in the game today because he was missing shots right at the rim that he normally makes, or 3 or 4 feet out. But he's going to get going eventually. For me, the key is we don't let Funk get going, and we try to at least limit Lundy. And I think Painter will have a defensive assignment that says no matter what. I don't know that we're going to put Newman on Pickett. I could see Newman on Funk just to not get him going and try to control Pickett with somebody else personally, but we'll see what happens.
I think,
you got Ethan Morton as an option too on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's literally where I was going. Is you have 40 minutes now. Last 2 matchups, you had Morton, and you were hoping Newman did fine. You do have 40 minutes now of at least one defender you trust. Pickett might still just score because he's that good. He is a top 7-8 player, whatever, in the country. But that is also a difference between from the first matchups.
And I think I could see a lot of the Newman Morton lineup together tomorrow, especially if Lundy starts getting going. I could see Morton and Newman in there together with Smith. Somebody in the chat asked about TKR and Edey together because Renew and TJD were in there together today against him. And I don't think we see that at all tomorrow. I think defensively, that's a nightmare for us trying to match up with them if we have those two guys on the court at the same time. So I don't think we'll see that at all. But I'm going to put money on the fact that we see a Morton Newman lineup for decent minutes tomorrow.
I like it. So let's burn through some of these starred comments that we had before we.
Are we going to talk about seeding and quads?
After the starred comments, because the starred comments have more to do with the Boilers or Penn
I've been
State.
waiting for my moment.
And we almost talked about it, and then we pulled back and did a little mini preview of Penn State for tomorrow because I knew you'd be itching to talk about seeding and tournament implications after what we've seen over here the last few days. So Derek Mulligan says, personally glad we get Penn State. Worst thing possibly would be losing to Indiana again right before the tourney. They are just a team with the perfect makeup to beat us. I think everybody was kind of rumbling through their brain who they'd want to play. I mean, when the post-game presser was going on, half the questions were about the idea of Purdue going up against IU. That ended up being a moot point to the Painter and the players. And, Penn State, who, just continues to get overlooked, just powered through. They beat Illinois, they beat Northwestern, and then they beat IU 3 straight games where it was definitively a hostile environment against them. There was Illinois fans showed out in the first one, Northwestern fans yesterday, and there were a ton of IU fans here today. And Midwest Toker says, glad IU lost. And it's like, as the person that just loves to be in the moment, if IU had won, no question, IU Purdue tomorrow would have been mayhem at the United Center. And I'm sure the Big Ten tournament is somewhat disappointed it isn't that matchup because they would have sold a ton of tickets and it would have been a crazed crowd. And there was a moment where Penn State fans, their family section was like really got up, and it was just almost kind of funny compared to when IU fans did it. And it really kind of went to show you like tomorrow is going to be a Purdue home crowd as long as Purdue fans show up, which I think they will for the Big Ten tournament championship. So, in that regard, I think, while the game would have certainly been fun, IU certainly presents some matchup problems. If you had told me if we could play IU and beat them, that certainly would have been something I take. But you take who you can get, and they're getting Penn State tomorrow. So it would have been interesting to see that, but we're going to see what we get with Penn State. Will Cooper says, Blake Widmer, I agree. Would have been better national TV product to see the rivalry played out for a trophy. Again,
but
go ahead.
But at the same time, like as YT Sparty says, it's all about matchups, and there's literally not a team in the country that is a worse matchup for us than IU, because you have a really, really high quality center that when Zach's playing drop coverage, he can't take that extra step or two up into the lane because you have to protect against TJD on the backside. And Jordan Hood-Schifino has shown time and time again that he can use his size and rise up and hit that mid-range shot. we saw today that JHS isn't really that athletic and really doesn't have a speed advantage. So when Penn State had a bunch of decent sized wings that they could switch on him and he couldn't just rise up and use his size, similar to Johnny Davis last year with Wisconsin, he couldn't take advantage of that. He doesn't have an athleticism advantage, but most of the guys that we're guarding him with, he's just got a size advantage and he can just rise up and shoot over him. And that's, if you have a guy that can consistently hit 8 to 12 footers all day long, and Zach's going to play drop coverage and a good enough center to make Zach not make that extra step out or two, you can hurt us. The problem is, nationally, there's just not very many teams in the country that have that guy. UConn, and I know Purdue fans hate UConn, but UConn is the one team that I like. They've got a couple of pretty good centers and their guys can hit mid-range shots. That's maybe one of the other teams in the country that I think can really play that matchup and take advantage of that drop coverage. Most of the time we give up that mid-range and guys might hit it for a short stretch, but they don't hit it consistently like JHS did. Not for the tune of 35 points in MAC.
Right. And then today he only had 6 points.
Well, again, matchups. Penn State, right. They've got wings with size that can switch on him and disrupt him. And he's not athletic enough to just drive by people, or he's not Jaden Ivey. Like he doesn't have that kind of athleticism or speed switch.
Right. So speaking of matchups, someone in the Boiler Diehards Facebook group said IU pulled back to Penn State midway through the second half with Jackson Davis and Renault on the floor together.
I already brought this up.
Edey and TKR together tomorrow, Joe? What do you think?
And Kraig kind of mentioned this. I don't think so. Just because I've really liked TKR's defense as of late. I don't trust it against Penn State. Can I go on just a small tangent about IU in this game? Because it frustrated me. How does Chase Jackson Davis, and people might get in my comments for this, the second best player in college basketball, Chase Jackson Davis, how does he get 14 shots? I know that they were doubling. How does he just not touch the ball for 5 minutes straight when they bring it back, it's tied, and then they just didn't go to him? And I know that Penn State was doubling, and they did a pretty good job, but
that's something they used to do a lot last year and not as much this year. That was something they did a ton last year, where he would disappear and they wouldn't get him the ball. Yeah. But this year they've made more of a concerted effort to make sure they beat him.
He was so timid tonight. Like there was times when he would pass out, and I was like, why is he not going? And then he'd go on a 2 or 3 minute stretch where he'd get real dominant, and then he'd get timid again. And I thought he looked tired. I thought he looked frustrated. And Joe, I saw you text that earlier when we were talking and whatnot. And I kind of put as much of that on TJD as I do on the guards, because I thought they got tired of kicking it to him and just watching him kick it back out. And finally we're like, okay, so I guess we need to do something, because I thought he got timid.
I think it's also on the coaches too. And I know it's a completely different style, right? It's more of that pro style pick and roll about, like, at some points just scheme something for him, right? Like they did a couple times. They ran some empty pick and rolls, have him slip, and now he got points off of it. But I just wanted to say that. I don't even know where we're at. It upset, as a basketball fan, it just upset me while watching. I did not understand it.
Yeah, and we appreciate Allison
Maciejewski.
Nice, yep. Joe. Said great show, guys, and we appreciate that a lot. And then Michael Hogg also pointed out, as timid as TJD was, he said, like Miller Kopp, also, why didn't he shoot when he was open? There was more than a few times, and I had a guy behind me that was an IU fan, just irate, because every time they kick it out to Kopp and he had a three, he wouldn't take it, and then he would like dribble into where now it's a contested shot, and a few times he made the floater going over the middle, but he wasn't taking the shot that he's in there for, and that's the three ball. And he also looked timid today.
Yeah, and Penn State played really well too. So there's that too. But yeah, I agree.
Yep, and they're gonna give Purdue everything.
I didn't. I mean this wasn't
not really well.
This wasn't a Penn State game where they shot, because sometimes they just go nuts from three, and I thought Pickett was average for a large part of the game until they really needed him, and then he stepped up.
At the end, he got his rhythm, but before the end, he missed like 2 or 3 straight air balls when he got great position, backed his guy all the way down. He's 2 feet from the rim, turn around. All he's got to do is put it in like Zach, but he's in guard doing this, and he completely alligator armed it 2 times in a row. So, but the more times you get that look, eventually they're going to start going down, and Purdue's got to do everything they can to make sure Pickett's not comfortable down there. And I'm sure Zach Edey's going to be a big part of that.
And I think some of that's playing 3 games in 3 days in a row. And tomorrow is going to be 4 games in 4 days in a row. And just like Ohio State today, I think that's going to be an advantage on Purdue's side.
Yep, and the fact that Purdue didn't have to be in a freaking rock fight today with Ohio State, I think helps too, where you had extended minutes where Zach Edey got to hang out, Braden Smith sitting on the bench hanging out, watching David Jenkins. Like with 10 minutes to go, they're up 11, and I'm kind of looking at Painter like, when are you bringing Braden back in? And they just were going to let it ride because they felt confident that they were going to win.
Yeah, Gillis and Smith got beat up a little bit today. They both took a few shots where they got up kind of gimpy, and that concerns me a little bit, especially with Gillis, because we know he's had back trouble his whole career, and just if he's going to be tight, and if there's going to be soreness from going through that the last couple of days. But yeah, for the most part, even though it got close at times and we were behind for a little bit, it just still never felt like they had to get in a slugfest like Rutgers, or if we would have had to play Maryland or something like that.
Absolutely. And everyone that's in this YouTube chat, if you've been hanging out this long, you obviously are enjoying what you're seeing. Please hit that like button. YouTube Sparty, you better promise me you're hitting that like button. All right, my friend. We appreciate you jumping in, coming across rivalry lines. You're always welcome here. Anyone is welcome in our chat. Maybe sometimes we'll get chippy with you, but it's all in love, in good-hearted nature with sports talk here on Boilers in the Stand. So we appreciate you tuning in, but you got to hit the like button. Thank you, YouTube Sparty. And if you want to subscribe, we won't hold it against you, but I know you're probably focused on your Michigan State Spartans, but so everybody hit that like, subscribe, whatever, but let's get on to the seeding.
Whoa, what is that?
What did I do? What?
I don't know. I don't know who Eric is, but I appreciate it.
Eric in the chat said, I hit the like button for Joe with a heart and a kiss face emoji. What is going on here, Joe?
I don't know who you are, Eric, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. And Sydney's in the chat, and she says, I see that hat, Joe. Such a shame you aren't wearing it. What's going on here, Joe? Everybody's getting hot and frisky for you with the hoop hat.
That is Sydney, Sydney is the creator of this hat, actually. That's my girlfriend. So she is
he's taken, ladies and gentlemen. So, back off.
Knitted this.
Very nice. There you go.
Yeah, pushing, doing a little promo. Hey, listen, I've kept thinking every time I see this hat that we need to get Bobby that hat because his name is Bobby Buckets.
Oh, so that's a good call.
Right? Like, I think that would be a great promo. That would be a great promo. Well, in practice, he says he made a lot of them against a lot of really good players, but we didn't actually get to see it. But I think if Bobby Buckets was wearing a basket hat, that's just fitting.
Willie Dean says in the chat, Joe's X's and O's takes on a whole new meaning now. That's right. So there it is, Joe. You're just a popular guy.
I guess so.
So, let's get on to the seeding before we wrap things up. Approaching the 2-hour mark on this show, some of which, will only be relevant for the next, 16 hours or whatever. But that's all good because
me wearing a bucket hat is relevant always. So
that's right. And for everyone that's tuned in this whole time and hung out with us, we appreciate all your support, and we're going to keep giving you great coverage of our Purdue Boilermakers. So, Kraig, I'm going to start with you. Landscape of college basketball. Purdue, 1 seed potential. Texas takes down Kansas.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to set you up and you just chop it down before I can
I'm just
even get
it
there.
it doesn't matter.
Before I can
I'm just
even get there.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Texas
matter. All right.
Texas, Alabama, Houston are locks. They've been locks for a week. They're going to be a number 1 seed. I've talked to bracketologists. I was pretty confident in that take. And then I talked to bracketologists this weekend at the Big Ten tourney, and same thing. They're a lock. I saw people in the chat like cheering that Texas beat Kansas. Doesn't matter. Kansas is a lock at the 1. The only discussion that matters is Purdue and UCLA. That's the only debate for a number 1 seed. And I'm here to tell you right now that Purdue has locked a 1 seed. I don't care what anybody says. If Purdue is not a number 1 seed, this committee does not care about numbers at all. We can look at the base numbers in terms of quad 1 wins. I think Purdue has 10 now. I think UCLA has 7. That might have both changed by 1 over the last day. I'm not real positive. The only kind of dirty mark on our resume versus UCLA is we have 1 quad 2 loss. But Rutgers went through an injury. The committee does care about that. When you get to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seeds, committee might not catch that stuff. But when they're looking at 1 seeds, they read into the entire resume. And everybody knows who Rutgers was before the injury. They know who they are now. They know that Rutgers has kind of figured themselves out again and has looked better of late. I'm not super worried about that. And then let's extend beyond that, because Purdue has 3 or 4 more wins from teams that are just outside of quad 1, home wins against teams that are in the top 35, top 40 as quad 2s. UCLA's quad 2 wins, all those wins are like in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Our quad 2 wins are way better than their quad 2 wins. Let's look beyond that a minute. Purdue has beaten 3 regular season conference champs in Hofstra, Gonzaga, Marquette. Purdue has beaten 2 conference tournament champions in Gonzaga and Marquette, who won in a frigging blowout today. And I realize that win was at home, but in terms of just best team that we've beat on the year, Marquette has turned into the best team. And Greg, you know, I turned to you during the press conference of that game, and I said, I don't care if the press said Marquette's finishing 6th or 7th in the Big East. This team is going to be really good. I saw the pieces then. I want my credit for calling it then. That's the way I called it, and that's the way it's turned out.
No, I said it.
We have one more conference tournament win. I don't want to say most likely, but a really good chance of coming, because right now Duke is handling Virginia decently well. So if we have wins over 3 regular season conference champs that are going to the 3 regular season conference champs, 3 tournament conference champs that are all going to the tourney. You look at that resume in terms of quad 1, quad 2. You look at how much better our quad 2 wins are. As Brian Tonsoni talked to me today at the game, if they put UCLA over Purdue, the only thing they can say is they are completely judging that with their eye, and it would be a travesty for everything they've said for the last 4 or 5 years about how much they care about the numbers.
Wow. My brain hurts. That, like, trying to take all that information in, like, my brain started to literally freeze and start hurting.
Well, that's how I felt in the passenger seat today, Gerbags.
Joe, your thoughts on seeding implications, all that craziness. Kraig just said that I may never understand, but try to understand, pretend to understand. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to start with saying Kraig knows more than me on this. I'm willing to admit that without a doubt. I'm not as big into the bracketology and all of that, but from what I understand, and I have kind of covered the Pac-12 for one of my writing things more, I agree with everything Kraig said. Like, you look at the numbers, I think Purdue's resume is better than UCLA's. Even if both win tomorrow, I think it's better. The only thing that UCLA kind of has going, I guess, is Purdue doesn't really have like a terrible loss, but UCLA, from what I'm recalling off the top of my head, like UCLA has no bad losses. Their worst loss is at USC, who is a tourney team. They look better, like Kraig said, maybe as of late. Not maybe. They've looked better as of late, without a doubt. But, I feel like, and that's just where I don't quite know what the committee's going for, right? Like you have to take the whole season into account at some point. Purdue dominated their their Thanksgiving tournaments. UCLA went 0-2 in theirs against similar quality teams. They had Illinois and Baylor. So I think there's that part. I think overall, I think Purdue should be the one pretty much no matter what. If they lose and UCLA wins tonight, maybe they don't, but I don't see how Purdue doesn't get the one in this.
Yeah, I see Mike says, Kraig is right, Braggs. You need some math books. They do me no good because I don't know how to read them. When I walked into Algebra 2, my senior year of high school, my teacher was Coach Tom Johnson, who was our basketball coach for our high school at Crown Point. He wrote these, formulas on the chalkboard. Everybody's real quiet, writing them down. I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn these. And then he goes, if you don't know these formulas, get out of my classroom right now. And I went, and me and 3 other guys walked out of that classroom to never return again to Algebra 2. So, I may not know how, I may not be good at math, but I know how to drive, so.
Muted.
And you are muted. So take that, Mr. Professor.
I said, and you've got big words.
I do. I got big words.
You got some good vocab.
We got good vocab. Blake Widmer says in the chat, I think we're locked into our seed regardless of what happens with UCLA Arizona tonight. Banking off what Craig's saying, I think we'll get the 4th number 1 seed, but maybe we get a 2. So he's all over the place now. I was like, it started out hot. And then he said, either way, we just got to play ball and play well. And I agree ultimately, Blake, because I said this going into today. Like, it's interesting, and obviously having a 1 seed is so important. Craig's laid out why. The percentages show that 1 seeds make it more than 2 seeds by almost 50% more. But we saw last year, it laid out perfectly. What did I do?
Joe, tell him what he did.
I don't remember the exact number. I think it was like 30%, right?
Shut up.
Is that what you were laughing?
No, but he said they make it 50% more. The numbers double. So
So 50%. So be quiet.
That's 100% more.
And so the point is, last year it laid out perfectly for them. They played a 15 seed to get to the Elite 8, and it didn't happen. So whatever their path is, the day they slay this dragon, it's just going to be what it is meant to be. Obviously, 1 seed is what you prefer, but if they don't, I'm with you, Blake. They end up as the top 2 seed, and they're in Louisville, and we'll all be able to go to the games much easier. Either way, I'm fine with it because they're going to the Final Four. Whether anyone agrees with me or not, that's what's happening. Winning the championship tomorrow, too. And then we're going to get more confetti. See this? This is confetti right here.
I feel like Blake's really non-committal. Like I need to know whether Blake just is a personality is not, because he's like, we're definitely a 1, but I'm fine with the 2 and maybe we're a 2. So like, I feel like he's a guy that looks at a menu and he's like, I think I want this, but maybe I want that.
You got to be more decisive, Blake. YouTube Sparty, our new friend here in the chat, says you don't want to play Bama. Yes, we do, YouTube Sparty, and I'll tell you why. Because if they're playing Alabama, that means they're in the Final Four of the national championship. So, yeah, we do want to play Bama because that means they've slayed some dragons, and that's being not been to a Final Four since 1980 and haven't won a national championship since 1932, right? I think, did I get that right? Look at that. I'm paying attention to my banners in Mackey Arena. We need to get some new banners there. They're getting one new banner with the Big Ten regular season championship, maybe a new banner tomorrow with the Big Ten tournament championship potentially, and maybe we get some more banners come March. We will see. A few more things, some observations some people made. Icy Mike said, Greg asked 45 questions to Matt Painter today. No, I didn't. I asked
2.
One. No, I asked one to Matt. I asked one to Matt, and I asked one to Braden.
And then two in the breakout room.
Then 2 to Newman. And
that got live broadcast too, apparently, because
because how did people see that?
People were reacting to your questions like really quick after that. So,
I didn't even realize they could see that. That's really interesting.
There were like 20 people taking video in there, dude. Like,
well, yeah, but I didn't realize it was live. And that was some of the questions I asked. Somebody asked, are we putting the Wilson ball conspiracy theory to bed yet? I hate talking about it. I don't want to, make this a bigger issue than it is, but it is annoying. I mean, they have to play with a different ball come tournament time. They don't play with this. Purdue doesn't play with the same ball during the regular season. Now they play with the new ball. This is the same thing that happened last year. When I asked Braden Smith about it, he said, and somebody said, Tom White said, Braggs, I was impressed with your questions in the presser. If you listen to my question to Braden Smith, I completely butchered it. I ran into this moment where I didn't know how to finish the damn question, and I just completely lost my mind. And I was very disappointed with my execution there. So then when I asked Newman, I asked it more concisely, and I kind of made up for it. But the Braden one, I just didn't answer it well. But he understood what I was trying to say, even though I said it in the dumbest way possible. And Braden said, as in regards to playing with the new basketball, that it's just an excuse at the end of the day. Everybody's playing with it, kind of gave the company line. Matt Painter's sitting 2 feet from him, so he's not going to be making excuses around his head coach, and maybe he feels that way too. But then when we asked Brandon Newman, when he was in the weight room, which was away from the main press conference, Brandon kind of opened up about the difficulties of playing with a new ball, with this Wilson ball, that it was, as I said earlier, it
grip, texture, size,
which is crazy to me. And
I don't understand how it can be big. I think the only way it's bigger is because it has that texture on the outside of the ball. Like, that's the only, because the ball is regulated to the same size. But if the texture and grip on the outside is a little bit raised, then maybe that changes the size. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, and then so then I followed up with Brandon, like, don't you think that it should be the same ball across the whole country? And he was like, yeah.
Yes.
And everybody kind of laughed at it. And we understand that it's a money thing, and it's not going to happen because these other schools pay money to different, sponsorships of deals, and you got the Nike ball, the Wilson ball. I get it. But it makes absolutely no sense from a competitive balance standpoint. And it would be in Purdue's best interest to play with the ball that you're going to play with the tournament all season long at Mackey. And if I was Coach Painter, and maybe the next time we have him on, this is something we kind of, hold his feet to the fire on.
The answer is money.
You're gonna hold Matt Painter's feet to the fire.
The next time he comes on,
you're scared.
You're tougher questions, because the first time he scared me, and he's not gonna scare me anymore. He still scares me to this day. And yeah, I'm gonna stand up to you, Matt. I'm not afraid of you, even though I'm terrified of you. And I'm gonna ask you why.
Well, what you would be asking is your school willing to renegotiate your entire contract deal with uniforms and shoes to be able to use the ball in the tournament? Because the ball is directly related to whoever they have the contract with. And I don't think they're going to drop Nike so they can play with the Wilson ball.
And then how come Nike can't? It's Nike, Michael Jordan. How come they can't just pay for the all of college basketball so everyone's using the same ball?
Well, it's because he's the second best player in NBA history. That's why.
Well, the best still is Nike, though.
And that's it for Kraig for the day. It's pissing me off. Kraig's just pissing me off with this Jordan slander. I can't take it anymore. So fine. I'll try to lay the stupid ball thing to rest, but it was interesting to hear the differentiating opinions between Braden Smith and Brandon Newman. So that was basically it. Bye, Kraig is right. I already said he's fired on Twitter from his Jordan slander. Then
I didn't know I was hired.
Yeah, and he said, "Where's my cut?" Which is coming from our faithful sponsors eventually. But if he keeps this up, I'm going to give his entire cut to Bitcoin is Freedom. So you can keep it up. And then it's going right to the Bitcoin is Freedom Charity Foundation.
So here's, Joe said he's not a bracketologist. So I was going to put the question up about how many Big Ten teams make the tourney. Let's still do it, because I think I can answer this.
I know.
Go ahead,
I'm just
Joe.
not like a specialist.
Well, let's ask the
question.
You got to read the question.
You're not a bracketologist savant.
Too.
Yeah. How many Big Ten teams make it into the tourney? Are Michigan State, Iowa, Michigan, Penn State, and Rutgers all going to make it? I doubt 10 teams will represent the Big Ten. Michigan won't for sure. correct? And then everybody else on that list.
They're
Michigan
getting
State
closer.
And Iowa, and
there's still a chance for Michigan because of some stuff that happened today and yesterday. But I think it's slim to none, and I think Slim just left the building.
So that leaves 9, because I don't think Wisconsin makes it either. So probably 9 would be my guess. I don't think Michigan makes it. Purdue, IU, Northwestern, Michigan State, Maryland, Illinois, Iowa, Rutgers at this point, right? Those are 8 blocks.
Yep.
We're confident in that.
Yeah.
Did I skip somebody?
And Wisconsin was in first 4 out on a lot of people's lists. So there was a chance that maybe they slide in. So Nebraska, Minnesota, Ohio State, and who else definitely aren't making it in? Nebraska, Minnesota, Ohio State. Nebraska, Minnesota, Ohio State.
They for sure aren't. I assume Wisconsin and Michigan aren't, and that's 5. So that leaves. 9.
Michigan isn't. So that's
5 teams.
So we missed a team when we were counting the 9.
Yeah,
but whatever.
I skipped Penn State. Penn State's in.
Yeah. How'd you skip them? They're gonna jump to an 8 seed tomorrow.
I'm reading off the KenPom standings, and it's ordered in a certain way, and they were sandwiched between Michigan and Wisconsin, and I just skipped them. But they are for sure, and I am excited to watch them. In the
they're gonna upset somebody.
Yeah,
I would love to see them play Alabama, dude. I would so love to see them, because I just think they could
Could they get a 9?
Ass savant them. You think they're gonna be a 10?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like I said, I know enough, but I don't know the exact because they were last 4 in at the start, and they've rattled off 3 straight.
Yeah, they're probably a 10. You're probably right. They're probably a 10.
Right, so
I would love them to be a 9 and play Alabama. That'd be cool.
We'll find out tomorrow. So YouTube Sparty says, how will Edey be in the NBA? And that's a question a lot of people ask, and I think we've all agreed that he's gone when the year is over. I think he'll have an opportunity to carve out some kind of a role in the NBA. He's certainly going to get as many chances as he can, because I think NBA scouts are going to find him intriguing. He moves his feet well. He shoots free throws well. He's an absolute bucket in the paint. That won't change in the NBA. Crack him there, Kraig. And, so it'll be interesting. Obviously, there's a mismatch problem defensively. The NBA is going to pull him out as far away from the hoop as they can, and then play pick and roll and get him matched up on guards and Kevin Durant and whoever else that he's going to have a lot of problems handling. But at the same time, he didn't necessarily have to be a starter. I mean, 30 years ago, if he was playing in 1991, he'd be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. And nowadays, if he is going to have a role in the NBA, it's probably at the back end of a bench for a solid team, and you get to the playoffs and you need a guy that comes in and gives you a few minutes as a rim protector and somebody that can get you a bucket or 2 down low. And if he gets fouled, he can make some free throws. But ultimately, if he can't make it in the NBA, he's going to have a long and illustrious career overseas somewhere. And depending on where he goes, let's say it's China or something like that, he's going to, make a ton of money and be an icon out there all the same. I think a lot of Purdue fans would love to see him return and be back-to-back National Player of the Year, building a statue outside. Everybody thinks it's not going to happen, and that's fine. But, while you're here, YouTube Sparty, we can play you a few clips of Zach Edey completely dominating your team. I think he had 75, 80 points on you this year.
You're going to make us lose him.
Your coach cried after both games that it just wasn't fair to play him. Here's another video.
Greg, easy.
Well, I like YouTube. So I told him we're going to give him some crap. So here's another clip where your guy completely hacks Zach Edey across the face. And it was as if he hit him with a fly swatter, and then he just put it in effortlessly for the 2 points. I was going to say dunk, but here's a dunk on your guys' party. And here's Braden Smith just dicing and slicing your team. And then look at this great passing back to first over to Edey for the jam. I think we beat Michigan State by 30 that day. So we appreciate you coming in, YouTube Sparty. You've been a fun commenter, and I'm just kind of messing with you here a little bit. But.
So I did see an NBA scout tweet today that people are underselling what Zach can do in the NBA. And like I double checked, like I actually searched his name and I was like, is this really an NBA scout? And he was, and he just said, I think people are underselling Zach's value in the NBA. And the one thing I'll say is we've seen him get switched on to guards multiple times this year, and he's done fairly well. I mean, all in all, and possessions in the NBA are not. They're just not as important as they are in college, because in college you're going to score 60 to 75 points most of the time. In the NBA, you're scoring 90 to 100, whatever. Like it's just different. And he does fairly well on those one-on-one matchups when he gets switched, in terms of just holding it long enough to be able to switch back off or protect and let somebody come over, help side, or whatever it is. And the other thing that I would say with that is, we've talked to a couple different people that said Zach's shot is really, people are like, can Zach shoot a 10-footer, a 15-footer, whatever? We've talked to multiple people that said Zach hits those shots consistently in practice and when he's working on skills workouts and that type of stuff. It's just not like going to be a focal point of Purdue's offense. And the only guy I've ever really seen Painter let do that, that's a true big man, is AJ Hammonds. And he was exceptional at it. But for the most part, Painter's like, big men are taking their shots inside and not outside. So I think there might be a little bit more to Zach's game than we know. And I do think, there's a really good shot he gets I want to say late, early, mid second round, but still gets it guaranteed that like somebody's gonna draft him in that second round, but lock him up for 2 years just to see what he can become. And who knows? Like, the dude's played basketball for 5 years. Like he's played basketball, for longer than, or shorter time than Joe's been driving, basically. So, like, who knows where his game could go from there.
And I think that, the last thing is the accurate part, right? Like, one is, well, we know Purdue is elite at developing big men, right? As I lag
at certain things.
Yeah. They have a system you trust. NBA teams, they are confident in their development, whether they should be or not. They look at Edey and go, okay, that's a guy we can develop into this. And I think because of how, switching is, and I know we're going to get on little NBA rants, and I don't know if everybody watches the NBA, but it is switch heavy. It is perimeter heavy. It is matchup hunting heavy, but there is still, like, it's an 82 game season. You have minutes you have to eat, right? Like, Edey, I don't know if he's ever, as of right now, I don't think he's ever like some playoff player, but you throw him in at center, play drop coverage with him 10 minutes, 15 minutes a game. Like, I don't think you put him in the spot where he has to switch. You play him in drop coverage. He's shown he can be solid at that at the college level. You let him to continue to develop that, and then you see what you can get off of the post, right? And that's kind of goes back to where teams think they can just develop him. If they think they can develop him even more reading in the post, or being able to play as a pick and roll guy as kind of a lob threat, or if he does step out and knock down a jumper. There are guys that play 5, 10, 15 minutes just basically because they're good in drop coverage and they can grab boards. There's that aspect too that I think like people probably overlook, like you said, when it comes to Edey. Like, it's not just, he doesn't have to be some superstar to stay in the league.
Yeah. So when we said that Zach was definitely gone, somebody they got in a question about NIL, and just to address this, Zach can earn NIL, but it's different because he's not a U.S. citizen or whatever. He originates from a foreign country. He can earn an NIL. Shewsberry. Did I say that right?
Shewsberry.
Okay. From Kentucky. He earns NIL, a lot of NIL. But there's a lot more hoops to jump through, and where that money originates from and how it funnels through to the player, everything else. There's just a lot more hoops in terms of how that money gets to the player. So it potentially, like, maybe Purdue could put a package together that was enough to make it really attractive for Zach to stay. But Purdue hasn't, like, necessarily football or basketball wise been like really out on the forefront of drumming up a ton of money in collectives like Miami or Kentucky or some of the other teams. And then you throw that wrinkle in there of being international and having to go through all those other hoops. I just don't know that that's in the cards, but maybe I'm wrong. Somebody told me that Greg Braggs and CHGO Sports were thinking about like throwing $500,000 at him. I don't know.
I will say one before we jump. Like I would want to do more research to actually understand how much of this is true. But I have heard there is possibility of that change coming even as soon as next year, where foreign players can then earn it. I don't know how much validity there is behind it, or if it's people are like, oh, maybe next year, but it's gonna be like a 5-year thing. But there is, if that goes through within the next 3 months, somehow, I think Edey's chance to return jumps a little bit. But his stock's never going to be higher than what it is now. So there's that part too.
All right. Well, that wraps things up for tonight. You got a nice long show, all of you.
Joe had more, Greg. Joe had more.
Care.
Fair.
Okay.
I have one rant I want to get out either today or tomorrow. It's about the quadrants.
If Joe. Do it.
Tomorrow for the bracket show. If it's about quadrants, we can talk about it during the bracket show.
Okay. We'll be done. I'll go do some puzzles with Edey.
Burning it at both ends of the stick or the candle or whatever the hell the saying is.
What?
I don't know.
Candle. You burn both ends of a candle, not a stick.
You can burn a stick, okay? You know, I'm getting delirious to the point where I'm gonna say the wrong boiler up, bear down. Don't get me in this space.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, boiler up, bear down. It's been a big week for our Bears, for my Chicago Bears right here. Traded that number 1 pick, baby. It's been a big week for Boilers in the stands, getting to a Big Ten tournament championship. You know, I seen over my shoulder here, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. We're walking around the underbelly of the house that Jordan built, walking past the locker room, coming out the same tunnel that Michael Jordan came out of. It's been a lot of fun. Sparty's a Lions fan. We're coming for you, Sparty. We're on your ass, so you better watch it. So, no, we're not freeing Joe. Joe can talk about the quadrants tomorrow. All right, we gave you a nice long show. Half of it's only going to be relevant until tomorrow when they play in the Big Ten Championship, and then we're going to be back at it again. But we love hanging out with all you guys. So before you start running out of here, like there's a fire, you better hit the like button. So I'm going to find out who doesn't hit the like button, and then I'm going to come to your house. I want to give a shout-out to Michael Lichtenfeld. He was him and his dad stopped us walking out of the stadium and gave us some kind words of encouragement for what we're doing here at Boilers in the Stands. And everybody that's met us here over the last few weeks. Kristen at Mackey Arena for the Illinois game. I also want to give out a shout out to our sponsors one more time. Fan Bags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Make sure you use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com. And then our guys over at Auto Owners Insurance. Start with Shire Insurance Services. Visit www.shireinsurance.com or make sure you call the phone number at 219-663-7274 for your insurance needs. And then, of course, our guys over at Mad Mushroom. Make sure you're getting the best cheese sticks in the game, the best pizza in the game from Mad Mushroom. Use our coupon code BITS for 15% off any order you make at Mad Mushroom Pizza. And then, of course, one more shout out for our guys at ISC Purdue. Thank you for providing some of the images you saw here tonight. And you'll see more images as the season goes on our channel. And then, of course, make sure you follow them at ISC_Purdue. So we appreciate their support as always. So there it is. We lose an hour of sleep tonight. Kraig broke that news to me earlier.
I'm just now finding this out.
He was like, I lose an hour. And I was like, Greg, the game's at 2:30 tomorrow. We'll be fine. It's not like we have to leave at 9 a.m. or whatever.
It's essentially 10:15 right now.
Yeah. So everybody listening, if you believe in prayer, pray for me tomorrow. If you believe in positive thoughts, give positive thoughts for my drive with Greg tomorrow. I will text everybody individually and let you know that I made it home safe.
You'll be just fine, my friend. You're in great hands with Kraig. You're in great hands. I'm like Jason Bourne, like I said. So anything else, guys? I mean, we're wrapping it up. The Midwestern goodbye, Justin Inman. We are in the thick of it. So, I don't have anything else. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have anything else or any other topic I want.
And you're not allowed to talk. Kraig's definitely not allowed to talk after his Jordan slander with
actually, I do have one
jersey.
Thing. It's really quick,
Oh my
because people
God.
They were just about the hats. I don't know what interest there is or not, but if there was some, I'm going to tweet out, I think, a Google form tomorrow if you do want one. So I'll tweet that out. Just put your email in that, and then I don't know the steps after that. I was just told to say this, so I'm saying
your girlfriend is going to be making hats.
So
for the
my
rest
only
of her
question,
life.
Joe, is like, I'm bald up top, so the whole purpose of a hat is to be closed up top. So like, can she make like a fake one that looks like there's holes in it, so that like it's actually closed on top of my head?
You just have the same hat, but there'd be like a netting mesh thing, like as you put it on your head.
I'm gonna let her figure that out, Brad, because I don't need you to problem solve it for me.
Right, listen, we're in this together, okay? So, anything else, Joe? Because everybody wants to hear from you in the chat. You
got to tune in tomorrow.
You want us to just leave you with the chat, Joe?
Oh, cliffhanger! No, cliffhanger is best.
Yeah, leave it tomorrow.
What?
You'll get my rants.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're celebrating a Purdue Big Ten tournament championship too.
That sounds great. That sounds really nice. We got UCLA and Arizona coming up here in 15 minutes.
We could just stay live until that game ends.
And then also, thank you, Willie Dean. We are going to give a shout out to Feed the Post. Make sure you're following the guys at Feed the Post _ on Twitter. And make sure you subscribe to whatever they're doing. And they're on Google and Spotify, Apple, Spotify, and what else?
Google. Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.
Yeah, Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Feed the Post with Joe Jackson and Aidan Kunst, a Purdue basketball podcast. They were live just the other night, giving a little breakdown of the Big Ten tournament. They're going to be doing some more of that when we get to the NCAA March Madness tournament. So make sure you're always following along with our guys, Joe and Aidan, with the stuff they do on their own right. So that's it for the shout outs. Shout out to everybody in the chat for hanging out this entire time.
What? No Boiler Diehard shout out?
Shout out to the Boiler Diehards.
You give Joe his props and not
you shout him out. 10,000 subscribers. 11,000 subscribers to the Boiler Diehards Facebook group. We share a lot of our work onto there. Kraig obviously is the founder and administrator of Boiler Diehards. They always are a big support system to what we're doing here at Boilers in the Stands. So shout out to them for always being in our corner. Make sure you join the Boiler Diehards Facebook group. And, it's a vetting process. So it's all Purdue Boilermaker fans in there talking all Purdue sports. That was a great shout out. So Boiler Diehards, that's right, Willie Dean. So shout out to the whole chat for hanging out this entire time as everybody's running out of here at the end. Don't Midwestern goodbye me. You guys set me up for this.
That's fair. I interrupted.
Yeah. So, shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to our guy Aidan. We'll see him tomorrow. Yep. And appreciate you, Kraig and Joe, as always, for all your hard work. I did not have any fireball today, John. Just Crown. So we're keeping it classy tonight. But tomorrow, we're going to be celebrating some more championships, some more trophies, some more confetti. So that's what we're going to do here. Is we're going to end this show with
We'll bring you a box of confetti, Joe.
There we go.
Well, Joe's got
if you're allowed on the court and Greg is able to take pictures, Kraig, get a picture of Greg. Get the picture.
We already did.
For tomorrow?
No, we took pictures of Greg and I on the court today.
Of him, he's going to be up against all Big Ten media, and he's going to be, I promise you, he will be front row. He'll be, if we're cutting down the nets, right?
Yeah.
Purdue's cutting down the nets.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
of him
promise you,
taking a
Greg will
picture
be
with
in front of everybody,
That's
taking the
right.
pictures. He will be up front. Follow his Twitter.
He's gonna whip
Craig's
your
gonna-
ass when
I
he
get the
sees
shots.
you.
The kind of shots you get here at Boilers
That
in the
was
stands.
sincere too. Like you do a great job with all that stuff.
Hey, I appreciate it. You know, you got to strike while the iron's hot. I'm a shark. When I see that moment, I attack. So that wraps things up. If you're going to the United Center tomorrow, and everybody should be going, make sure you get loud for these Purdue Boilermakers. They're playing hard for you, and you need to be rooting hard for them. Brick by brick, rise and shine. Purdue Boilermakers, it's your time. See you tomorrow. Boiler up.